Shalom, shalom, Raul. How you doing?
I thought I didn't have any volume, and now I just heard you talk.
Yeah,
How
it's
you
really
doing?
quiet.
Yeah, yeah. Sparky New has no music today.
Neighbors are awake now.
Yeah, I loved your comment last night. I laughed so hard.
What comment?
He made a comment that he said, "She's not the only one confused."
Yeah, we get a little bit into that Jewish custom stuff. I'm not sure where that was going. Yeah, that was like that's right out of what Chabad.org or something. I don't know what we're doing there.
For us,
I
it's
mean, I
hard because
understand
we
it's a
don't.
shadow, but it's a lot of those shadows are fulfilled. He was our wave offering, wasn't he? I mean,
We don't have
Exactly.
all the trees that you need to build that. So
that just
we
smacks of religion.
I know we never got involved in that. I can't even remember what it's called. Elube and
It's,
whatever.
I mean, it's historically interesting. I get that, but that's what they did.
oh,
Okay.
and it's scriptural because it's scriptural in there, but
What if you live up in Canada? Like, where are you going to find any of those plants? I mean, what?
Well, the whole idea is they want you to buy it through from them. You can buy the whole kit.
Te
You know,
fijas.
that's what she was showing
Yo
you.
te dije, eso es un kit que seguro you can buy.
Hey, Phyllis, what's the? You said potassium levels are really high. So what's? I take a lot of potassium. If your levels are really high, what are your other symptoms?
Well, lack of muscle control. And weakness. And see, the thing is, I've been noticing lack of muscle control. I've been noticing weakness and it's my slow heart rate. I was working at my desk and my watch went off saying your heart rate's been under 45 for over 10 minutes, and that's not good for your organs, for your heart rate to be that low for that long. And anyway, so I was noticing all these things. Then my doctor calls me, or her assistant calls me and says, your tests show that your potassium levels are high, and you got to just cut back on eating some potassium. And I just made all those banana brownies.
no
Oh,
more banana brownies.
not not for a while.
Well, I just my sourdough starter is on its second day now, so I'll be doing more feeding tomorrow or real late tonight. So I'm all excited. It already smells like sourdough, so I'm thrilled.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome. How long have you been making your sourdough?
It's just that going in. I did it 2 nights ago, starting it, and I used the actual fresh milled flour. So I'm real excited. I used just the soft winter white.
I decided I don't like sourdough flour.
I've
I don't like sourdough bread. It's sour.
I've just always loved it, and I don't know. I'm gonna find out. I know there's some ways where you can
Well,
cure
I
longer
love it.
in the fridge, and it gets more sour, more acidic. So I'm curious to see like what.
It's
I
good with olive oil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably love the crust best because that's what I would do with factory made stuff is I would end up eating all the crust and then much of the fluffy stuff in the middle that wasn't whole, it wasn't fresh milled, so it would get thrown away. Oh, brother Danny's alive. All right, shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
How you doing, brother Danny?
Oh, I am in a lot of pain, but that's okay. So, yeah, hard to sleep, roll around like a pig on a spit for the those that don't believe, uh,
Yeah.
and but I'll stay as long as I can. I'm just sitting here on my couch. Yeah.
We have a friend that when he's in pain, he praises Yah.
I do that.
Praise
I
you.
I
Praise
do
you.
that. I was laying in bed, moving all the different positions from 0G to flat to read to you name it, whatever positions I can come up with in the bed. And, it was just like so much pain every which way. I'd move one way and a little bit would be okay, and then it'd start being painful again. I don't know how my wife puts up with it. She just lays down and goes right to sleep. Meanwhile, I'm rolling around.
I do have a couple of suggestions for you
Yes, of course.
that helped me. Because y'all know I've shattered my back. I've broken it twice. 3 compressed fractures in my neck, 4 bulging discs in my neck. I shattered my leg. I have a rod. So I should be that possibility who shouldn't be walking. And what helps me is taking off my shoes and planting my feet upon the earth, allowing me to heal. And also there's an earthing sheet that you can get for your bed that helps your body heal. And it does work. That's just a couple of suggestions.
What is an earthing sheet?
You can also get it for your computer too. You put the pad on the floor when you're on your computer and you put your feet on it. So it's grounding.
Huh.
So it's grounding you to the earth through a plug. So just like they would ground your house,
Yeah.
with the rod in the ground and the wiring, that's earthing you when you cannot be outside.
So it's like the third plug of an electrical
Yeah,
outlet.
you put it goes in the bottom one. If you have the 3-prong, it goes
Yeah.
right into the grounding, and you can plug it in into your bed, or you can put it on your laptop. They have different ways of doing it that you can do. But of course, I'd say the best way is just going outside, taking off your shoes.
Yeah.
Even if you can make a little mud, on the ground, because that water is electric and it absorbs better in your body. And I can tell you, and I can attest to it, I do believe it works because I'm still walking.
I'll give anything a try when I have to go and walk the doggies today.
See, what has happened is man has created plastic and put it on your feet. So before there was plastic, we had leather, and leather is a conductor.
We use both.
So when you walk on leather, you're still getting the earth, but when they created plastic, it separated yourself from the earth. So you're no longer being conducted. So there's no grounding. They do have shoes now too that they have grounding shoes.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, it's
copper
pretty amazing.
shoes. Copper shoes would be great, but not an electrical store.
I mean, I've had doctors just amazed. They don't understand how I could even walk. I have my back the compression is really bad. It's grounded down in the last 22 years. And, they figured I would have been paralyzed a long time ago. So.
Toria, give all that praise.
Oh, I do.
Hallelujah for that, not your grounding blanket.
Oh, no, I know that, but what I'm saying is he created the earth for us to heal. He did this. So there's other ways of being able to ground now to the earth that he has created us to heal on. It's definitely not us. It's definitely his creation. And he definitely gets all the praise.
We just need to know how to use it.
Right. And we've lost that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We really have.
Well, I'm sure when the time comes that we have to go fend for ourselves, I'm going to lose a whole lot of weight.
Oh yeah. You're kidding.
Yeah. I mean, to me, hunting is going through Kroger in the meat aisle.
Every time I take a spear into HEB, they give me a funny look.
Huh, that's funny.
Hunters and gatherers are we.
Yes.
Yes. And I do that at Kroger. And a new Kroger is coming up right down the road from us. So.
Well, they just got flack for their meat. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't. I don't know that. Actually,
Yeah.
my wife goes to Fresh Market. She likes, and I like the meat better at Fresh Market, or best, I should say, at Fresh Market. I've tried Aldi's meat. The hamburger is okay,
You need
but
to get online and look for a local butcher that actually raises their own cattle and
Yeah,
sells their own meat. That's the best way.
there's several in our area.
And a lot of them will deliver.
Uh, well, actually, one that we used to go to opened up a store called Haymarket. I don't know if Phyllis and Lou know about the Haymarket, but it's in the area. It's actually in Jefferson County where they're at. But what it's kind of like a higher end Fresh Market. If you can do that.
Is it a store or is it an open
Yeah.
air?
Yeah, it's on River Road, right across from the River Road Barbecue. Kind of like near Zorn, really close to Zorn and River Road.
Thank you. We'll check that out.
Yeah. So if you're taking 71 south, let's say, and you get to Zorn, you're gonna make a right onto Zorn, and you're gonna make a right going back up on River Road, and it's less than a half a mile, much less than a half a mile, maybe a quarter mile on your right, Haymarket. So, but Haymarket, they have an outside place for coffee and such, and you would think, oh wow, it's all beautiful. They have AstroTurf back there. Why? But whatever.
Probably for
I-
easy pet cleanup because people bring their pets.
They won't let people bring their pets. That's why we don't go there for coffee, because we love our little creatures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they won't let them. Probably because of the AstroTurf.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in Menards the other day, and there's a sign that says no pets allowed. And of course, we bring our pets. We just ask for forgiveness other than permission. And I mean, we have little dogs, and they stay in our cart, and nobody. They bark sometimes, but they don't bother anybody. There was this huge thing, probably like my size. I don't know. It was a big dog, and the owner was holding the dog, and there was a line of what the dog ate before, all down the aisle.
Oh,
And she was waiting for somebody to clean up. I was like, oh yeah, that's the end of us bringing our dogs in, I guess. Because nobody ever said anything. Yeah, it was bad.
Oh,
But yeah, anyway. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I gotta remember that when I do feel good enough to do stuff, I shouldn't do it. So I was busy yesterday working. Actually, we're gutting the master bathroom, and I should say, we've gutted the master bathroom. Now I got to put it back together, and I do a little bit at a time, so that when I start feeling a little bit bad, I stop, and then I do it another day. There's no big hurry. But yesterday I wanted to get stuff done, and I went like maybe 5-6 hours, and I'm dying still.
oh, that's too much.
Yeah. I can only do a couple hours at a time, maybe. But what I need to do is enlist one of my 5 boys. That's what I need to
There you go. Delegate.
do. I did that a long time ago.
Exercise that headship, sir.
Yeah. Years ago in a different house, our water heater went bad after I had a motorcycle wreck and tore my left shoulder. Same shoulder that's torn now. Anyway, and the water heater went bad. So got my two oldest sons, and I showed them how to solder. Yeah, and they did it. They did a good job. So, yeah. Oh, let's see what we got going on here.
That's one thing I'm grateful for. As a young lad, there was a group called 4-H in the little farming town I grew up in, and all us kids knew how to solder when we were 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Just a normal thing.
Yep. Yeah, what I did was I bought a little extra copper fittings and such just to solder it for for practice solders. And hang on a second. Got a text. All right. And I showed them this is how you do it. This is you want to put the flux in, and you all of that stuff. And after they did it, I said, now look in down the tube, and you can see that it's completely covered. I said that would hold water, and so they knew they knew how to do it. It was kind of awkward because they're really good at video games, but real life stuff is kind of tough. But they did it, and that one held good. And then last year I think, in this house, the water heater went bad, and I was just like, I ain't gonna do that. And shark bites, boop, boop. There, you're done. So I cheated, but I won't do shark bites in the plumbing in the master bath because it's gonna be covered up. And shark bites have O-rings, which is after 10 years or so, they're going to get brittle. And I don't want to have to open the wall up again to fix the leak. So, I am doing PEX-B, though. So I've never done PEX-B before. I think I like soldering better.
Yeah, same here. I've threaded my own iron pipe for decades, and I don't. When I see all this plastic stuff, it makes me nervous. Like, okay, this is just going to fail. Yeah, like you said, 10, 15 years out, it's gone. It dries out. I don't care where it is.
Well, they've had PEX out for 20, 25 years, probably more. And all the builders swear about it, of course, because it's cheaper than copper. And I have a friend who does kitchens and bathrooms. And he's so busy he can't even do us. But he says he uses shark bites. I'm like, I don't like that. But he said that they've done PEX-B, and they've never had a problem with it. So I don't know. However that works, we'll go with it because I'm just everything hurts getting down there and trying to do stuff. It all kind of hurts. But squeezing the rings on the PEX-B, the collars, I thought would be a lot easier.
Yeah, that Schwagen tool is some work. I've used it a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. I went and bought the one that was offset, so you just use one hand to do it. Yeah. No, I'm a big boy and I'm kind of strong, but you ain't using one hand to set those collars.
No.
Yeah, I should have bought the one with the long.
Hey, Brother Chad, how you doing?
So anyway, that's my things. I'm just trying to stay off my feet, off my knees, and my back. Oddly enough, you're in bad shape when you're on disability because your shoulder and everything else hurts worse.
Got to spread the pain.
Yeah, it's like smashing your finger with a hammer so that your head doesn't hurt anymore.
It takes your mind right off of that finger.
Absolutely.
That's why we count it all as a blessing, right?
Absolutely. I keep wondering when the end is going to be, so I don't have to do this anymore. But anyway. I've been still trying to catch up on a lot of Mark's stuff and everybody else's stuff that is on YouTube. And I got to one part where I had disagreed with, and Frank, I think we talked about that. And then who does the teaching on? Is it Doug? Yeah, I think it's Doug. Was doing it on. I forget. Anyway, and he came across one book that I hadn't read in a long time. I think that was. I got it here. What was that book? That book. I'm limited with hands. So, Zephaniah? Zephaniah. No, it wasn't Zephaniah. It was the one after that. Anyway, and I was thinking that the sacrifices in the millennial reign was was incorrect, because I was like, no, there's no way that shouldn't be happening. And then I read, I'm going to have to find it. I need my two hands. But I had read that I think it was Zephaniah. It might have been Zephaniah. It was a Z. So anyway, I read that they were talking about the nations had to go to Jerusalem, and the nations had to go to Jerusalem, every, I guess it was every year for Sukkot. And then a few verses before that, it talked about in Jerusalem that there was an earthquake that separated the north from the south. And I know that hadn't happened yet. So now I'm kind of perplexed from my previous thoughts and teachings to that there might be, or I guess there will be, sacrifices ongoing still after into the millennial reign. And that's kind of throwing me for a little bit of a loop, but I'm going to work it out. I'm going to read a little more, study a little more, figure out what's being said, and have to deal with it. So
Yeah, I'm struggling with that too. Just the concept that it's throwing away Yahusha's sacrifice gives me great pause. I don't to resume live animal sacrifice. Right. We need a second witness on that.
Yeah, absolutely same here. And I had read all of, oh gosh, I can't remember things when I'm not.
2 minutes. 2 minutes before we're going to begin in 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
So I can't remember the books and such when I'm thinking about pain, but I had read the entire, 39, 40 chapters, and oh man, I'm sorry, I just can't recall the names of the books. And I was like, no,
Well, it was Yashayahu you were talking about. Or no, Yechezkel.
Yechezkel, yeah. Okay. So I read that, and I was like, I think that was the second temple. And I had done fat, dumb, and happy, and I'm good to say that I am all of those. Until I came up with, one hand. How come we don't have more than that? Wasn't Zephaniah? What's the one after that? There's Zechariah. All right. Yeah. So in Zechariah, what does it say? 14.
Chapter 14.
Yeah. 14. And that's what verse? 4. Yeah. It said the mountains. So, yeah, that there was great earthquake on the Mount of Olives, and that the split will be it'll go north and south. Anyway, at that point, now I'm like, oh my, that's millennial reign. So I have to dig deeper, and I just hit that. I think it was last night. Oh no, the night before that, and I was like, okay, that blows all my theories and thoughts away, and all the garbage I was taught. So, yeah, it is hard to reconcile that that there would still be the need for a Levitical priesthood, because I thought that the that what was finished was indeed the Levitical priesthood, but apparently it comes back somehow. So I'm confused. Yeah, but yeah, that's me.
Okay, let's get started. We're running way behind here, and today's Feast of Tabernacles, so I don't want to stay on here too long today. We do have some plans for later on. So we're going to start a new study now in Revelation, and it's going to be very intense and exciting as we proceed through this. Sorry, Chad. I know we were eager to get into John Yehukanan, but we got voted out. But we'll get to it sooner or later. So just be patient. Revelation here is really about the second coming of Yahusha. It's revealing Yahusha's second coming and all the events and activities and things and conditions that are going to lead up to the second coming of Yahusha, from the time of his death, burial, and ascension, all the way to the tribulation years, the last 3.5 years allocated to mankind, which is the end of the 6th millennium. He will return. So we're approaching this time period rapidly and getting very close to the end. According to Scripture, mathematics of Scripture, there's no other way of looking at it. So the revelation of the second coming of Yahusha, if you will, or you could say the revelation of Yahusha, as we get into it, it's going to reveal who he is and when he's coming back. That's what Revelations does. So it reveals who he is and when he is coming back. That's the whole idea behind Revelations. It's not some spooky book written to freak everybody out or to mix people up and confuse people. It's really quite clear. It's given to us in 3 segments. Okay, and what I mean by segments is 3 tenses. We get what Yehukanan saw, or what he has seen or saw. So this is would be a past tense. That's one segment, and that's totally found in chapter 1. And then the other second segment is obviously then will be the present, what's going on now. Okay, the present tense, what you see, that's present tense. Okay, and then the third segment is the future, would be what's coming, and the future tense. So we have past, present, and future, 3 segments in Revelations. A lot of people were taught that Revelations begins with futuristic events and goes all the way through the book, but that's not true. There's 3 segments, past, present, and future. Coincides with the definition of Yahuwah's name. Who is, with present, who was, which is past, and who is to come. Yahushua HaMashiach at his second coming, of course, which is futuristic. It's in the future. So even his name defines him as living in all 3 tenses, past, present, and future. Okay, and so the revelation of Yahusha speaks as well in that sense. Those three tenses is past, present, future. So the first chapter is the past, or what he has seen or saw. The second and third chapter is what's he sees, the present tense. And then the futuristic, the future prophecy segment begins in chapter 4. And from chapter 4 to the end, we get a glimpse into the future of the second coming of Yahusha. Okay, that's the way this book's laid out. And that's the way we're going to read it and understand it. Because if you don't, you're going to be all mixed up like everybody else. Everybody else, there's a million different opinions of revelations. But the biggest stumbling block by far is that people do not understand that the future prophecies begins with chapter 4. If you can grasp that and relate to that, you're ahead of the crowd for sure. Okay, so that's how we're going to look at it. And today we're going to just do chapter 1. We're going to do the past, what he has saw, what he has seen, and get the introduction to the revelation of who Yahusha is. This chapter tells us who he is. Okay, so very powerful chapter. And then we're going to stop at the end of chapter 1 today. And next week we'll get into the present, which is chapter 2 and 3, which is going to probably send a lot of us tumbling down the hill very rapidly. Yeah, especially those who have not understood the meaning of chapter 2 and 3. Okay, so and then the following week we'll get into the prophecies, the future prophecies of his second coming and the events that are going to take place. Don't forget now, we started the end times. The last days begin in the year 4000, or the fourth day. Okay. And after that, there's only 2 days left, or 2,000 years left. After the ascension of Yahusha, there's only 2 days left, or 2,000 years. So we all pretty much understand when Yahusha walked the earth, and we all realize, or at least we should, that it's almost been 2,000 years. Scripture doesn't give us any more time. He comes back after the second day. Most of us are probably familiar with Hosea 6 prophecy, and that's where we get that. And as we read into Revelations, especially once we get into the future part of it, we're going to have to go to Daniel. So we'll be back and forth between Daniel and Revelations quite a bit once we hit the 4th chapter. Because you can't hardly talk about Revelations without bringing Daniel into the mix. Okay, we'll talk about Daniel just a little bit today, matter of fact. They go hand in hand. They're like twins. You can't separate them. Kind of like Siamese twins. Very hard to study Revelations without Daniel, or study Daniel without Revelations. Okay. Anybody got any questions before we start? Can I get a reader? Tad, go ahead. Just go slowly into it.
All right. Revelation of Yahushua Mashiach, which Yahuwah gave him to show his servants what has to take place with speed. And he signified it by sending his messenger to his servant Yehukanan, who bore witness to the word of Yahuwah and the witness of Yahushua Mashiach to all he saw.
Okay, stop. All right. So this first little paragraph here really lays it out for us. Revelation of Yahushua Mashiach. Okay, so that's what this is all about. It's revealing Yahushua, who he is. Okay. And we can see that it says, which Yahuwah gave him to show his servants. So he gave it to who? Who'd Yahuwah give it to? Yahushua. Okay, so he get to show his servants what has to take place with speed, means just coming quickly. And he signified it by sending his messenger. What messenger? Yahusha. To his servant Yahuchanan, who bore witness to the word of Yahuwah and the witness of Yahushua Mashiach. So he's witnessing of the word of Yahuwah and the testimony or the witnessing of Yahushua Mashiach. So he's a Nazarene. To all he saw. Saw being past tense. See that? So right off the get-go, it says all he saw. That's past tense. Everybody seeing that? So we're going to look backwards now. Hindsight's 20/20 in that direction. Okay, and we should be able to recognize that as we proceed. Hindsight of what? What happened in Yehuchanan's life relating to Yahusha. He's already gave us great witness already. Okay, but this is confirming that this author here is the same author as in John 1, John 2, and John 3. Everybody seeing that? Go ahead, Chad. Chad, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Toria's in the background wanting in. Sorry to interrupt. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
I wondered where you went, Toria. I kind of noticed you weren't there, but I didn't. You know what I mean? Kind of weird. Somebody else just dropped. Who was that? Toria, when you're in the backstage like that, waiting, can you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can? Okay.
Yeah, everything's the same.
Okay, you're just saying on screen. Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay. So to all he saw, past tense. Any questions up to this point? Everybody seeing that what's happening here? It's the revelation of Yahushua HaMashiach. So we're going to learn here very shortly who Yahusha is, because that's what it says. It's going to reveal him to us. That's what revelation of Yahusha means. Revealing him to us. All right. So revelation, dictionary wise, Webster knowledge now, is an act of revealing, to view, or making known. Okay, so something that is revealed. And especially an enlightening or astonishing disclosure or shocking revelation. Okay, so an act of revealing, to view, or making known. So it's going to bring Yahusha into view and make him known. Everybody seeing that? Anybody excited yet to know who Yahusha really is? Should be. Okay, let's go, Ted, real slow again.
Picking up at verse 3. Blessed is he who reads, and those hearing the words of this prophecy, and guard what is written in it, for the time is near. Yehuchanan, to the 7 assemblies that are in Asia. Favor to you and peace from him who is, and who was, and who is coming.
Okay, hang on a minute. Okay, so notice here that it says, blessed is he who reads and those hearing the words of this prophecy. Okay, he's talking about prophecy. Now, if it's been seen, it's in its hindsight 2020. Is that prophecy? Can prophecy move backwards? Only in the sense of teaching, not in the sense of foresight, right? Everybody catching that? Okay, so the words of this prophecy, and guard what is written in it, for the time is near. And now Yehukanan to the 7 assemblies in Asia, here it begins a salutation. Okay, so he's beginning. He's who he's talking to at this moment right here now. Now, before we get too farther off into that, I want everybody to understand one thing. There wasn't just 7 assemblies in this period of time. There was more like 14, somewhere between 14 and 20. So these 7 assemblies are pointed out, identified, and pointed out for a reason. See what I'm saying? Why isn't he saying to all 14 or all 20 assemblies? He's not. So this is an isolated group. This group, the 7 assemblies, are within 50-mile radius of each other. You could actually probably walk around to half of them in one day. That's how close they were. So there's an isolated group within a certain area within 50-mile radius. So it's not talking about all the assemblies. And people get that mixed up. Okay, because they want it to fit in a false agenda of theirs. That's why they do that. It's just has become, it's an untruth that has been spread and believed on for a long time. But that right there is what confuses people. So just know that that's not the only 7 assemblies that Paul started or what began after the ascension of Yahusha. There were more than 7, at least 14 or plus. Go ahead, Toria.
I was going to say, wasn't it just this prophecy that there is a blessing if you read or hear of it? It's the only one?
The only one I can think of, really. Yeah. So anybody that reads this book or hears it read is guaranteed a blessing. Okay. But I just wanted to pause here because I wanted y'all to see what was going on here with this. Well, the salutation began, and that there's more than just 7 assemblies, and the words of this prophecy he has to be not just talking about this chapter 1. The prophecy starts here, but because it says he saw, which means it's in the past. You see, so it can't be talking about chapter 1 being a prophecy. Everybody picking up what I'm laying down? Anybody got any questions on that? Okay, let's go, Ted.
Okay, I'm going to start at the word favor again. Favor to you and peace from him who is and who was and who is coming.
Who's
and
that? Who is that?
Yahushua HaMashiach.
Okay.
Continue.
Go ahead.
And from the 7 winds that are before his throne.
What's that? What's the 7 winds before his throne?
The 7, what?
Okay, so favor to you and peace from him who is and who was and who is coming. Well, who is coming? Who what's our expectation? Go ahead, Toria.
Is it the menorah? the 7 winds?
Winds? No. But what I'm asking is who is coming right now? Who is coming? Go ahead, Ted.
Yahushua HaMashiach is coming.
Yes, Yahushua is coming. Okay, who is, who was, and who is coming. He lives in all three tenses. He's not restricted or confined like in the present like we are. Okay. And so this is witness of what characteristic of his would this be witnessing of or testifying of? Go ahead, Ted. Go ahead, Raul.
His omnipresence.
Omnipotence, yes. Go ahead, Ted.
Oh, I was just going to give my opinion on what I was going to take a stab at what the 7 winds are.
Go ahead.
Like I said, it's just a stab, but is it the days of the week, the 7 days?
Or the appointed times.
Okay, and from the 7 winds that are before his throne. Go ahead, Raul.
Could it be the 7 millenniums? The whole time?
I think that's what it is. I do believe that that's what it is. But I want you all to realize something here. This is also a testimony of his what? 7 winds. What would that be?
His existence. His essence.
Yeah. His omnipotence.
Mm-hmm.
He gives us so many clues about his omnipotence, and even funny. So the 7 winds, they basically from every direction possible, right? It would be his omnipotence, his ruach is everywhere. Okay, this is what it's really applying to. 7 being the number of completion, right? Perfection and completion. Go ahead, Frank.
Yes, sir. Chad is back.
Chad's back. Thank you. We got one opening slot here. If anybody wants to join us, you're more than welcome to come in here. Sandra, Renee, anybody? I'll put the link out there for you again. Okay. Okay. So, go ahead, Tad. Let's continue on for a second. Go ahead, Chad. Hey, I like your haircut, by the way, man.
Thank you. Now, I was going to ask, talking about the 7 winds, have you thought about it as like the 7 ruachs or the 7 spirits of Yah? Just if you look at other translations and in the Greek and whatnot, just also a ruach as a wind, maybe.
Yeah, I mean it can be. Yeah, it can be. So that's found in the 7 spirits of Yahuwah is found in what book is that found in, Chad? It's slipping my mind right now. I can't think of it where that is. Anybody know? I'll wait here a second. Somebody can find it. Man, it aggravated me. I can't think of where that's at right now. I got my mind on too many things this morning. Anybody find it?
In Revelation 3:1, it says, "And to the messenger of the assembly in Sardis write, he who has the 7 spirits or 7 ruachs of Elohim and the 7 stars says this, I know your works, that you have a name, that you're alive, but you're dead." That's just, I don't know if the
It's
line
in-
B says that. I'm reading that in the scriptures.
That's Isaiah 11, what it is. Right off the front of it. 11, the 11:2. Or 11:1 through 2, I should say. But it does mention it in Revelations 3:1. I just don't want to go there right now. So Isaiah 11, it says, "And a rod shall come forth from the stump of Jesse, and a sprout from his roots shall bear fruit." Obviously speaking of Yahusha. "The ruach of Yahuwah shall rest upon him, the ruach of wisdom and understanding, the ruach of counsel and might, and the ruach of knowledge and of the fear of Yahuwah." That's the 7 spirits of Yahuwah. So that could be the 7 winds. That's what Chad's suggesting here. "And shall make him breathe in the fear of Yahuwah, and he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ears." So that could be very well be. Go ahead, Jedi, Steve.
Hey, Mark.
Amen.
Which verses was that? That was Isaiah 11.
Chapter 11, 1 through 3.
1 through 3. Thank you very much.
Okay. All righty. Go ahead, Ted.
I only counted 6 there, though, Mark, in Isaiah.
You miscounted.
Okay.
Want me to do it for you? Oh, okay, Mom.
Maybe I don't have enough fingers.
Get that spoon out, Mom.
She's got it right there.
Okay. All right, so here we go. It starts in 2. Okay, so the ruach of Yahuwah shall rest upon him. The ruach of wisdom and understanding, ruach of counsel and might, ruach of knowledge and of the fear of Yahuwah. And he shall make him breathe in the fear of Yahuwah. That's 7. The fear of Yahuwah. You see it?
That was Yahuwah, fear of Yahuwah twice, wasn't it?
And he shall make him breathe in the fear of Yahuwah. That's 7. Okay, so the only thing here I want to point out here, and I'm not saying that Chad's wrong, but this is speaking of the 7 spirits of Yahuwah, if you will. Okay, whereas Revelation said 7 winds. So can we say that that's the same? I don't know. I mean, we could, but I think to keep it's more distinct, and so to me, it's different. Spirit versus winds. Okay. So that's my only caution on that. And so I would go back again to suggesting that this is speaking of his omnipotence. Okay. So what would 7 eyes be? We read a verse that says his 7 eyes. Does that mean Yahuwah has 7 eyes on his face? Or a lamb has 7 eyes on its head? What would that be suggesting? We have 7 spirits, 7 winds, 7 eyes, 7 lamps, 7.
One eye looked cross-eyed.
What do you think, Ted?
Possibly
See?
saying that he has that many eyes because he can see and be in the past, present, and future all at the same time.
So it's speaking of his omnipotence again, right? So anytime we see 7, it's highly suggesting his omnipotence. Everybody seeing that? What's his other 2 qualities that only Yahuwah has besides that? Omnipotence. So 7 eyes is suggesting he sees everything all the time. What's the other two qualities Yahuwah has? He's got three.
Love.
No.
Well, there's omnipotence,
Omnipotence.
which means he's all powerful,
Right.
and all knowing.
And all knowing.
And all knowing.
Omnipotence. So he's all knowing, he's all powerful, and he's everywhere at once all the time. So 7 suggests his omnipotence. Although it can relate to all three of his characteristics, his qualities. That only Yahuwah has. No Melachim has it. The devil doesn't have that. No man has that. And there's no man that can even see 1 second into the future. Go ahead, Ted.
I do want to say, though, that I believe Sister Toria is right, partially that it might be mixed in, because that, like the menorah, the 7 lampstands, is about his Moedim, which is information that tells us about his coming all the way. It's all a revelation, to his the restoration.
And it's about his omnipotence. It's about
Right.
being. It's about ruach. It's about all of it combined through the light.
Is that all it's about, Ted?
No, but I think that might be mixed in, is what I was saying, mixed into that.
It
Because
could.
there's 7.
7 lampstands could apply his omnipotence. I just said that. So we got to listen. Got to listen up. I think I just said that. We can rewind this and see if you want. You ever see them commercials where they do a instant replay? It was between 2 people. That's a really cool commercial. I like that commercial. I wish we could do that. Go ahead, Chad.
I know you don't want to talk about Revelation 4 yet, but like in 4:5, it even says, out of the throne came lightnings and thunders and voices, and 7 lamps of fire were burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of Elohim. Is that
I don't
relevant?
want to go. Yeah.
You don't want to.
Yeah.
All right, then.
Because the reason I don't want to go there yet is because what I'm trying to focus on here is the past right now. I want to stick in these. We got to understand the 3 segments of Revelations, because that's the huge stumbling block for everybody. It really is. But once we get there, we're going to have a really good conversation. I know you're itching, but we'll get there. When we hit 4, man, it's going to be just amazing, all the way from 4 on to the end. So we're going to have some really fantastic conversations. I can almost promise you that. I've never studied Revelations this way before. I really haven't. I've only done it by me reading and then taking questions. It's reading, explaining, and then at the end taking questions. So this is new for me as well. So I'm going to try to do it as best I can. And I've never done it this way before, so you're gonna have to bear with me here a little bit. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Let's continue on then.
Picking up in verse 5. And from Yahushua Mashiach, the trusted witness, the firstborn from the dead, and the ruler of the sovereigns of the Eretz. To him who loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood, and has made us sovereigns and priests, to his Yahuwah and Father. To him be esteem and rule forever and ever. Amen.
Okay, hang on a minute. Okay, so he began his salutation here, Yahuwah to the 7 assemblies, right? And then favor to you, peace from him who is, who was, and who is coming from the 7 winds that are from before his throne, and from Yahusha. So Yehukan, this is from Yehukanan and Yahusha. See that? So now he's letting us know that this is not just from him and Yahusha, from Yehukanan and Yahusha. You see that? So there we have what? So what does that mean? We have co-authors or a writer. We have co-writers here in this letter. Yeah, because Yehukanan is sharing what he has seen or what he saw. And then once we hit 2 and 3, he starts taking dictation of what Yahusha wants him to tell the 7 assemblies in Asia Minor. And then 4, it's all Yahusha. But Yehukanan don't even know what's happening. He's being shown this thing, and what we showing him and telling him what to write. Okay, so the reason Yehukanan's involved here as a writer is because of what he saw, what he's already witnessed to. Okay, which we all know because we just got done studying these first 3 letters anyway. And you can see why I wanted to go into John before we came to Revelations now, so it all fit more perfectly in there. But I think we're advanced enough to where we can all see this. So we're picking up a co-author, if you will, by the name of Yahusha. The faithful witness, as he's the faithful witness, the firstborn from the dead, and the ruler of the sovereigns of the Eretz, to him who loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood, and has made us sovereigns and priests to his Yahuwah and Father, to be esteemed and ruled over. Okay, so this is very interesting stuff. Take a look here at Acts 20:28 now. Go to Acts 20:28. I can't skip over this. There's a lot being said here in this salutation. So we go to Acts 20:28. Don't forget what's happening here. It's the revelation of Yahusha. He's revealing who Yahusha is. Okay, it's what we're going to gain out of this. Chapter 1 is who Yahusha is. That's what it's all about. So 20:28 says, therefore take heed to yourselves and to all the flock, among which the Ruach HaKodesh has made you overseers to shepherd the assembly of Elohim, which he has purchased with his own blood. Among which the Ruach HaKodesh has made you overseers to shepherd the assembly of Elohim, which he has purchased with his own blood. Okay, so we have to apply that back over here to Revelations 1:5, the Yahusha, to him who loves us and washed us from our sins in his own blood. Okay, so there was only one blood sacrifice. So the blood that was spilled belonged to the Ruach HaKodesh, which was not able to be done in his natural form, if you will, as a spirit. The spirit does not have blood. And so he had to transform his body into a human body in order to contain the perfect, pure blood of the Ruach HaKodesh, so it could be spilt. So it was spilt out of the body of the Lamb of Yahuwah, which was Yahusha. So what's that telling us, somebody? It's pretty clear. What's it telling us? Go ahead, Tad.
That Yahuwah is one. That Yahusha is Yahuwah.
Yeah, it has to be. There was not 2 sacrifices. There's only one sacrifice and one blood spilt, pure, perfect blood of the Ruach that was in the body, in the lamb of Yahuwah, his body. Okay, so and he made us sovereigns and priests, right? To his Yahuwah and Father. To him be esteem and rule forever and ever. Amen. So here we're getting we're seeing that Yahusha, is Yahuwah, and we're also seeing the different roles that Yahuwah played. So the Ruach HaKodesh, being Yahuwah, played the role of the Father and played the role of the Son and got delight out of it. It made him very happy to play these roles. He got a kick out of it, in other words. Okay, he had a lot of fun with it. He delighted in it. He made it. He's doing it. He spoke it. He planned it, and he's doing it, playing all these roles, and it's bringing him great happiness to do this stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to cheat just a little bit and go over to Revelations 5, 9. And they sang a renewed song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain and have redeemed us to Yahuwah by your blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and made us sovereigns and priests to our Yahuwah, and we shall reign upon the Eretz." Okay. There it is again. By your blood. All right. So we know whose blood was it? The blood of the Ruach HaKodesh. We just read it in Acts 20:28. You say there was only one blood. I mean, we can go on with that. I don't want to, but I just want you all to see that. So this is the start of the revealing of who Yahusha is. He's going to get real deep into it. He's going to leave no doubt in your mind past this point. This is the beginning of the revealing. Okay. Anybody got any other thoughts on this or anything? Yeah. Okay, let's continue on then.
See, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye shall see him, even they who pierced him, and all the tribes of the Eretz shall mourn because of him. Yes. Amen.
Okay, hang on a minute now. Okay, so verse 6 was the end of the salutation. Okay, now we're getting into the revealing even more so. So see, he is coming with the clouds. Now, who is that? Every eye shall see him, even they who pierced him. So who's that talking about?
Yahusha.
Yahusha. Okay. And then all the tribes of the Eretz shall mourn because of him. Okay, so this is no doubt then is talking about the second coming of Yahusha. All right, this is telling you that when he comes back, he's coming in the clouds, with the clouds, and every eye shall see him, even they who pierced him. Okay, so go take that and go to Zechariah now in 12. So Zechariah 12. And 9 and 10, really. Let's start at 8 so you get it more in perspective here. In that Yom, Yahuwah shall shield the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the feeble among them in that Yom shall be like the Od in the house of the Yud, like Elohim, like the messenger of Yahuwah before them. So this is speaking of Armageddon here. And there was a nuclear blast. They exercised the Samson option, and Yahuwah came back and shielded the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the nuclear fallout, the nuclear blast. Okay. And it shall be in that yom that I seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. That's the anti-Mashiach and his army, the world army coming against Jerusalem. And Armageddon. And I shall pour on the house of Daud and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem a ruach of favor and prayers. And they shall look on me, whom they pierced. And they shall mourn for him as one mourns for his only son. And they shall be in bitterness over him as a bitterness over the firstborn. Okay, so this is no doubt speaking of Yahushua the Mashiach, but who's saying this? Who's saying this? This is in Zechariah. Who's saying this? Is it Mashiach saying this? It's definitely talking.
It's Yahuwah saying this.
It's Yahuwah saying this. And listen to what he says. And they shall look on me, whom they pierced. Yahuwah is saying they pierced him. You seeing that? Look over at 13. This is all Yahuwah. Look over at chapter 13, 6. And one shall say to him, what are these wounds in your hands? And he shall say, because I was wounded at home by those who love me. O sword, awake against my shepherd, against the man who is my companion, declares Yahuwah Zabuath. No doubt it's Yahuwah saying this. Smite the shepherd and let the sheep be scattered. But I shall turn my hand upon the little ones. And it shall be throughout all the soil, declares Yahuwah, that 2/3 therein are cut off and die, and 1/3 is left therein. And I shall bring the third into fire and refine them as silver is refined, and try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I shall answer them. I shall say, this is my people, while they say, Yahuwah is my Elohim. They wounded at home by those who love me. This is Yahuwah saying this. He's saying that they wounded him. Go over there to Zechariah 14. Who wants to read from 3 down to 9 for us? Somebody. Zechariah 14. Go ahead, Ted. 3 down to 9.
Okay. And Yahuwah shall go forth, and he shall fight against those nations as he fights in the day of battle.
Who shall go forth?
Yahuwah.
Oh, Yahuwah. This is talking about the Mashiach. All these so far. But who's saying it? It's Yahuwah. Go ahead.
And in that yom, his feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two, from east to west, a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And you shall flee to the valley of my mountain, for the valley of the mountains reaches to Atzal. And you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the Yomim of Uzziah, sovereign of Yehuda. And Yahuwah, my Elohim, shall come, all the set apart ones with you. And in that yom it shall be, there is no light, it is dark. And it shall be one yom which is known to Yahuwah, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. And in that yom it shall be that living Mayim flow from Jerusalem, half of them toward the eastern sea, and half of them toward the western sea, in summer as well as in winter. And Yahuwah shall be sovereign over all the Eretz. In that yom there shall be one Yahuwah, and his name one.
Okay, so who's saying all this? He's gonna fight the battle. He fights in the day of battle. His feet stands upon the Mount of Olives. There's no doubt this is talking about the Mashiach, but who's saying this?
Yahuwah once again.
Yahuwah. You see that? So now we should be starting to understand what's going on here. Real quickly, William brought up a really good verse here. You know, we were talking about the 7 winds and spirits and eyes and all that. Yeah, Zechariah 4:10 is a fantastic verse for that, for the eyes. For he has despised the yam of small beginnings. For who has despised the yam of small beginnings? They shall rejoice when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These 7 are the eyes of Yahuwah, which diligently search throughout all the arets. So there you go. So what is that? That means he's omnipotent. It's proclaimed as omnipotent again. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. When every time that you see 7, whatever it is, it speaks of his omnipotence. But it could also include his omnipotence and his omniscience as well. Okay, but definitely it's talking about his omniscience. He's everywhere at once all the time. He never has to leave anywhere to go to somewhere else. He's already there. He just does what he wants anywhere in his creation. Okay, so even they who pierced him and all the tribes of the earth shall mourn for him. So this is definitely speaking of his second coming, which we just read about in Zechariah. And it's also then would be relating to what? What else happens at his second coming? Now, is the second coming of Yahusha the same as the day of Yahuwah? Yeah. But what else happens? What other event happens at his second coming? Dad?
I believe it's the bride is raised.
Yeah, the first resurrection.
Yes.
First resurrection happens. Go ahead, Toria.
I just wanted to mention something that I had noticed from the beginning. In verse 6, and it says, and has made us sovereigns and blah, blah, blah. Hold on. I'm sorry, 7. See, he is coming with the clouds. He's not coming in the clouds. He's coming with the clouds. So my thought, knowing that clouds is a covering, so he's coming with the coverings, which when you go to Zechariah, where you read in verse 8, in that day, Yahuwah shall shield coverings. Again, the clouds. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. That's a spiritual connection to that. Yeah. Very good, Toria. Go ahead, Ted.
Just to add to that, I was just thinking, just as he led the children of Yisrael out of Egypt for those 40 years, he was a cloud by day and a fire by night. So yeah, kind of mixing in there, coming with them, as Sister Toria said.
And it also makes me think too that Yahusha, being his embodiment, is that covering, is that shield that he puts on. If that makes any spiritual sense.
What's the deal with the cloud?
I
What's
think
up with
it's the same example as the huppah.
Up to what?
I think it's the example of the huppah. It's our covering. Yahusha was our covering. He is the embodiment, the covering of Yahuwah. Who's coming.
Remember when we talked about that a few weeks ago? What is a cloud? You know, remember that? Remember where we determined it was water?
Yeah, which
water
is also breath.
What's that?
Which is also breath, as water's in the breath.
Yeah, but which is vapor. So water
Right.
can come in 3 forms, right? Solid, liquid, and gas, right?
Right. Which is why we must be immersed.
Let me ask you what I asked a couple weeks ago. Is Yahuwah water?
He's everything. He's the light, the water. He's the source of all energy. I mean, what is it? We're 90% water. He's in everything.
Go ahead, Ted.
You asked what was the cloud. I was just going to answer it was the presence of the Ruach HaKodesh.
Is it living water?
He is living water.
So is Yahuwah water?
Absolutely, but so much more as well.
Which is why when the one gentleman said if you could just put on his tongue just a little water, just a
The one
dab,
drop of living water
living
on his
water,
tongue, what would happen?
he would live eternally.
That's right. So some people say, what's the use in that? Why would he want one drop of water upon his tongue if he's in hell? What would that do? It'd probably evaporate before it even hit his tongue, right? But are we speaking of literal water, or are we speaking about living water? It's the water of life.
Living water, life, eternity.
So how powerful is one drop of the Ruach? Probably more powerful than our minds can conceive.
Like the lady touching the seat. It was just like the drop because of her faith. But
I
he
think
didn't.
that one drop. Oops, excuse me, Toria. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that one drop is as powerful as Yahuwah wants it to be.
Correct. Yeah, Yahuwah can do anything. Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Raul.
Go, Raul.
Aren't we his living water?
What's that?
Aren't we his living water?
That's what he says. He says, out of your belly will gush forth streams of living water. Didn't he say that during Tabernacle? Feast of Tabernacle. They could have said that on what? Probably the 8th day.
I got an idea. Something came to my mind the first thing that came to my mind when you talk about the seven seas cover almost the whole Ark. That's why it's like a reference of omnipresence. He's everywhere. And also when it says here coming with the clouds, to me it's like he comes like the clouds come. They come every day. We don't know how they come, how they go, but they come every day. We never know when he's gonna come. Also, you understand that? That's what came to my mind when you read that.
Now, that's a very good point, Raul. That's exciting. Yeah, he can appear like a cloud, right? So he comes with the clouds, like he can just come out of nowhere. All of a sudden, there's a cloud forms, right? Really good. So that would be in conjunction with he comes like a thief in the night, nobody to know. Just there he is. He just shows up, right?
Which is interesting because the clouds are drawn by the wind.
Thank you for pointing that out. That's
The 7 winds.
Yeah.
So, really good stuff. Anybody else? Go ahead, Ted.
I just wanted to point out, though, that when he was talking to Moshe at Mount Sinai, the cloud came down and settled on the top, but it wasn't wet. It burned it.
That's the power of the light.
Yeah, it was like darkness too. So the cloud must have been super duper thick. You know, like you ever see a real black thunderstorm? Clouds are like super duper black. Must have been something like that. And the fire in there.
That makes sense because I don't, us living in Texas, we know how these storms get out here. And I'm telling you what, when it's a dark storm, you feel that power in it. Not like just any storm. It's just wow.
It's extremely scary.
Yeah.
Dark clouds as dark as they get down here, man. I mean, it's black as tar.
Yep.
You ever see that, man? You're like scared. You start getting fearful.
The calm before the storm.
Just the sight of that, it must have been mind blowing to them. But don't forget, they heard his voice. He spoke the 10 to Balaam, and then he wrote them down on tablet and gave them to Moses. But he spoke them, and in the ears, all the Israelites heard him coming out of the fire, out of the black clouds. Boy, that must have been a really scary experience. No wonder they told Moses, we don't want to talk to him no more. You go talk to him. Just come back and tell us what he said. No wonder.
Yeah, we don't want to die.
Yeah. We hear his voice, we might die. That was fearful, you know. But is there a sign before his second coming? I mean, we're talking about him just showing up as a cloud, out of nowhere and stuff. But is there a sign of his second coming? Go, Ted.
The lightning will be seen from east to west across the entire earth.
All right. Then he'll come. So that's kind of like setting the stage for his second coming. All right. All righty. So anybody else? All right, let's continue on now then.
Okay, picking back up at verse 8. I am the Aleph and the Tau, beginning and end, says Yahuwah, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty.
Okay, stop.
Or Al Shaddai. I'll stop right there.
Okay, so what does that mean? What's the Aleph and the Tau? What does that mean? What does the beginning and the end mean? What says Yahuwah? Notice this is supposed to be Yahusha. He sent his servant. All right. So Yahuwah gave his servant this message. Okay. Sending his message to his servant Yehukanan, who bore the witness of Yahusha. And so it's Yahusha telling Yehukanan, okay, and down here it says Yahuwah. Okay, and so who is and who was and who is to come? What's that mean? And what's the Almighty mean? Go ahead, Torah.
I'm going to say Yahuwah was from the beginning. Yahusha, who is in his embodiment, was or is, and who is to come. He shall return. It's all Yahuwah embodiment, because he shall return.
Yeah. So who is and who was and who is to come is three tenses: past, present, future. So what's that mean? Well, that simply means that Yahuwah is not restricted by past, present, and future. Those are within him. They're within him. They're not outside of him. They're in him. And he occupies all three tenses. Okay. It's the very definition of his name.
Which again says that he is Yahusha.
Yeah, it says that Yahusha is Yahuwah.
Yep.
So I am the Aleph and the Tau. What does that mean? Somebody. Go ahead, Toria.
I like to say he's the beginning and the everlasting, because there is no ending.
Well, we ain't talking about that yet. Beginning and the end. What does Aleph and the Tau mean?
Well,
Says,
the
I am the
oh, the
leaf
head,
and the tall. What does that mean?
the aleph is the head.
Yeah, it's a difference because it's see, there's a comma, then it says beginning and end. So it doesn't mean beginning and end. It has to mean something else. Because why would he be asked saying comma beginning and end? If that's what it means, it doesn't. It means something else. So what's the leaf and the tall? Go ahead, Raul.
Always will be.
Can't hear you, brother.
That time doesn't restrict him. He is not restricted by time. He's everywhere all the time.
Okay, so can we replace I am the leaf and the towel with the first and the last? Are we allowed to do that? Sorta, maybe. Probably. Go ahead, Tad.
I just wanted to point out that obviously the Aleph is the first letter of the Iberith Aleph Bet, and the Tau is the last letter, and he embodies his entire Aleph Bet. He's in every letter, in every word that's ever been written down. He embodies that. He's in there.
You're very extremely close. You're very close, Ted.
From the
Think of it
beginning
a little bit differently then. So word it differently. Can you word that differently? Rather than him embodying it and being in it? How else can you say that?
Percents.
He's all information.
Ooh, getting real close. Yes. So, yeah. So what it means is he's the leaf in the ta. That means that he is in everything and everything is in him. Okay, so everything it exists is in Yahuwah. Yes, he's in there, but he's also on the outside of it because everything's in him. See what I'm saying? So nothing can be outside of Yahuwah. Everything's within Yahuwah existence. Everybody seeing that? Toria?
Yeah, because I see that he is the creator of all things from the beginning, and he's the creator of all things to the everlasting or the end.
And everything's in him.
In it.
He's the first and the last. There's nothing outside of Yahuwah. Everything's inside of Yahuwah. Everybody seeing that? Go ahead, Tad.
And he says, I will show you the end from the beginning.
Wait a minute now. We're jumping ahead.
All right.
That doesn't apply to a leaf in the tall. Comma, beginning and end. We're going to get into that just in a second. Anybody else? Raul?
So could it also mean that everything we know, everything that we've ever seen in the total of the Yaret's history is him?
Yeah, I mean, it can mean that Yahusha will be there, not a human body, but Yahuwah, his Ruach, will be there and protect us from the back. Like we can't escape the presence of Yahuwah, so he's got us totally encompassed. In other words, he's the perimeter of existence, man. Nothing exists outside of him. Okay, so he's in the front, he's in the back, and everything else is in between. So he's got everything encompassed. Nothing outside of him. He's the first and the first and last. Yeah, the tall. Everybody seeing that? You can't exist outside of him. He's it. We can't go beyond in front of the Aleph, and we can't get behind the top. Okay, we got to get somewhere in the middle of those because that's the perimeter of existence. Nothing can exist outside of the Aleph and the Taw, which is the Ruach. Okay, everybody on board with that one? Any questions on that one? Okay, now comma, beginning and end says Yahuwah. What does that mean? Does that mean he's the beginning of everything, that he had a beginning? And does that mean that he will have an ending? At some point he's going to end? So what's beginning and end mean? If it doesn't mean the beginning and the end of Yahuwah, what's it talking about then? Go ahead, Ted.
His creation.
His creation.
Everything he made.
Right. So there's a beginning of his creation and there's going to be an end to his creation. Go, Toria.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Okay. Right. Everybody understanding that and everybody picking up what's being laid down here? Anybody is confused or not understanding that? Okay. And so says Yahuwah. So this is Yahukanan is revealing who said this. This is a quote. See the quotations? This is what's said by Yahuwah. Not Yahusha, but Yahuwah. All right. So being that this is the revelation of Yeshua HaMashiach, then why did Yahuwah say all this?
Because he's one and the same.
Because Yahusha is Yahuwah?
Yeah, I think he had to make that clear
Yeah,
that they were ahad.
He's making it very clear, isn't he? Okay, let's continue on. Okay, wait a minute. What's this? So who is, who was, and who is to come? We've already talked about that. That means he lives in all three tenses, and all three tenses are in him. He's not restricted by them. The tenses are his creation, right? He created them, so he's not restricted by them. Why would he have created the tenses? He has to be there in order for it to survive. If he wasn't there, it would just cease to exist. So that's why he has to be there. So the tenses are in him and he's in them. So why did he have to create the tenses? Dad?
Well, just my opinion, but for man's sake.
To understand.
For understanding.
Yep.
Yeah, all for the purposes for his plan he had when he created man, right? Okay. All right, so the Almighty, El Shaddai. What does that mean? Shaddai, what does that mean? Go ahead, Ted.
It means mighty overwhelmingly.
Okay, so overwhelmingly mighty. So what is that? What's he telling us by applying that suffix to his name?
He's all powerful.
He's all powerful. He's omnipotent, right? So here Yahuwah is declaiming his omnipotence. He's all powerful. So if he's all powerful and everywhere at once and knows everything, is it possible for him to manifestate himself into 10 different manifestations all at the same time on 10 different opposite points on the Eretz and Shemayim? Can he do that? You better
He could be in a million different places at a million different times if he wanted, or any number that we couldn't even fathom.
Right. Do whatever he wants, many times as he wants. Okay. So he's not limited to 3 manifestations, is he? So he can't be just held within the box and say he's a Trinity. You can only manifest yourself into 3 different things. So that's restricting him, confining him within a doctrine, we'll just say. So can we see that error? So if he can do 3, or he can do 2 or 3, he can do as many as he wants. 100 billion, a trillion, a zillion, whatever. And it can all be different manifestations too. You know what I'm saying? So us humans are kind of weird, man. Since we're boxed in and restricted, we want to box Yahuwah in and restrict him too, and tell him what he can do and what he can't do, and where he can be and where he can't be, stuff like that. You know, so we can't do that. We have to stop trying to define him, restrict him, confine him in any sense of the words, man. We need to humble ourselves and get back to where we belong. We're the creatures, not the creator. Okay. So far, you know, he's revealed his omnipotence, and now it's omnipotence to us, which we know that only Yahuwah has these qualities or these characteristics. So if those things are involved, it has to be Yahuwah. Okay. All right. Anybody got any questions so far? Let's go ahead then, Ted.
I, Yehukanan, both your brother and co-sharer in pressure and in the reign and endurance of Yahushua Mashiach, came to be on the island that is called Patmos for the word of Yahuwah and for the witness of Yahushua Mashiach. I came to be in the Ruach on the Yom of Yahuwah. And I heard behind me a loud voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am the Aleph and the Tau, the first and the last. And write in a book what you see, and send it to the 7 assemblies of Asia, to Ephesus, and to Smyrna, and to Pergamos, and to Thyatira. I'm stumbling on this one. Thyatira, and to Sardis, and to Philadelphia, and to Laodicea.
Okay. All righty. So, why was Paul put on the island of Patmos? I mean, not Paul, Yehukanan. Why is he put on the island of Patmos? Go ahead.
I think because they were obviously trying to kill him, so he had to go to a place where he could write these things down, where he can meditate, where he could be protected.
Okay, but he didn't put himself there. He was exiled there, right? He was okay. So the ideology is that Yehukanan was Elazar. Okay, and they were out to kill Elazar. We all know that, right? Do we need to go to John 27? We all know that. Okay, so after Yahusha's death and his ascension, they finally caught up with Elazar or Yehukanan and captured him. So Elazar was incognito, going by the hidden name of Yehukanan, so he wouldn't be easily identified, right, by the authorities that were out to kill him. And so, but they did finally catch him, and in the library of the Caesar, they had kept correspondence between Caesar and his people under him, and there was a letter they found in there that they had sent to Caesar saying they had captured Elazar and tried to boil him alive in oil times they couldn't kill him, so he was taken and exiled onto Patmos. Okay, but what was the reason they were out to kill him, capture him, and then the reason why they actually exiled him to Patmos? Go ahead, Dad.
Well, I think the reason they wanted to kill him, obviously, was because he was raised, but he was exiled. It says here, for the word of Yahuwah and for the witness of Yahushua Mashiach, which I think is for this very revelation that we're reading, to receive that. Just an opinion.
It was unknown to him. What would be the reason it was known to him? Go ahead, Jedi Steve.
They wanted to stamp out what he was sharing, what he was giving everybody.
Yeah, originally they were after to kill him because he was a testimony of who Yahusha was, right? Because he rose him from the dead. And everybody wanted to go see Alizar, who was raised from the dead. And if this was true, then Yahusha has to be Yahuwah, because only Yahuwah can do these kind of things. No man can do them, so he must be Elohim if he rose somebody from the dead. So the Pharisees wanted to kill Alizar to stamp out his testimony that nobody could see him alive after everybody knew he was dead. Okay. But what was the reason why? That's why they caught him and boiled him alive. They were out to kill him. But why did they decide? What was the crime that he committed for them to exile him to the island of Patmos? Go ahead, Toria.
Well, what I was going to say, what's interesting is the fact that they didn't have to exile him. They could have just killed him.
They could tried.
So because of that, because I'm thinking because they couldn't convict him, they didn't have the proof. So we're just gonna go get rid of him and hide him away.
No, they had proof. They had a reason why they could do it. They couldn't send an innocent man to exile. Patmos was like a mining colony. It was a real huge, dirty mine there that they would exile prisoners there and make them work that mine. Okay, it was a mining prison camp, if you will, island. Go ahead, Danny. I didn't see what you put up there, Mom. Gargly? My Gargly? I don't know what you're saying.
She's saying there's wind noise coming from Toria.
Yeah, she's saying Toria has wind noise. Is all.
Okay. Well, let's just control our mics. All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Danny.
I would say because he was not a learned rabbi or whatever, and him speaking the name Yahuwah or Yahusha, that would be a reason for him to be imprisoned or even killed.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Raul.
Could it be because he wouldn't die? So they had to get rid of him somehow?
Yeah, I'm sure that was part of it.
His crime was not dying.
What's that?
He's right. His crime was not dying.
No, his crime was not dying. If they try to execute you and the execution doesn't work, are you released? Can they execute you twice? No, you get released, man.
Yes, but he was proof of Yahusha, and they didn't want any proof of Yahusha.
Right. Right. And it's like I say, that could be part of it. But for them to actually sentence him to exile, which is like going to prison, okay? It's a punishment, okay? It's not, they weren't doing him any favors by sending him to Patmos. What was the crime that they came up with, or what he did that enabled them to sentence him to exile? It's just like putting somebody in prison. They weren't doing him any favors. Yeah, they were trying to just get rid of this guy. We can't kill him. Let's put him where nobody can see him. That could be true, Raul. That I can understand what you're saying, but it's not the answer I'm looking for. Go ahead, Tad.
I'm just going to take a stab at it, thinking back, trying to go through the scriptures. Was it because he used the name? No.
No. Toria.
Was it because he was professed to be part of the Nazarene, that he was of the kingdom?
You're hitting on it. Go ahead, Raul.
No, I know what I was gonna say is gonna be wrong. I say maybe he wouldn't recognize Caesar or any of their power.
No. Okay, so the answer is really simple because it's right here in front of us. Go back to 9, right? The end of the halfway through verse 9. And then in the reign and endurance of Yahushua Mashiach came to be on the island that is called Patmos for the word of Yahuwah and for the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach. That's why. Okay, now go to Revelations 12:17. 12:17. And the dragon was enraged with the Asha, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commands of Yahuwah and possessing the witness of Yahushua Mashiach. Back over here to the island of Patmos for the word of Yahuwah and for witnessing of Yahushua HaMashiach. Same reason the dragon's out after you, each one of you. Same reason John was sent to Patmos. Says it right here. He's saying that's why they put me on Patmos, because of the word of Yahuwah and for witnessing about Yahushua HaMashiach. That was his crime.
So he was a living witness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like it says in Revelations 12:17 here, and also
he was also the last brother alive, right? Of the 12, he was the last brother alive.
If you believe he was of the 12, then you would have to be saying he's Yehukanan, one of the sons of thunder. Okay. And Christianity does project him as Yehukanan, the son of thunder. And they say that after he spent so many years on Patmos, he was allowed to leave, and then they let him loose up in Greece, and he went up into Macedonia somewhere up in Greece, and he died silently, quietly, about 90 years old, 92 years old as an old man, and just kind of disintegrated up there. But that's Christianity. You can believe that if you want. I have different thoughts.
You know that I have different thoughts. I just maybe they thought he was one of the 12.
I doubt it. I don't think so. They had identified him at that time because they tried to boil him in oil. They knew who he was, and it's recorded that they captured Eleazar, and that they tried to boil him in oil 3 times, and they couldn't. He wouldn't die, so they exiled him to Patmos. So according to that letter in Caesar's library, we know that this was Eleazar on Patmos. According to Christianity, it was Yehukanan. That's one of the sons of thunder. Go, Toria.
I just thought this was quite interesting because you mentioned, okay, so when somebody is tried to death and they live through it, they're acknowledged or released from their punishment, correct? Like Yahusha, he was put on the tree and he lived. So he was released from his punishment, and Yochanan was a witness to that. Mm-hmm. I just found that quite interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. We got to remember though here that Yehukanan is not going by Eleazar because he was an incognito, so he changed his name, right? Here's a challenge for everybody out there. Is there any proof anywhere? Can you find any proof that Eleazar changed his name to Yehukanan and was going by Yehukanan because he was incognito running from the authorities? If somebody can find that, proof of that, bring it. So I challenge all of you to try to search that out and find that if there's any information that proves that he was using the alias name of Yehukanan. Speaking of Eleazar. All right. Now the letter to Caesar is proof. If you can find a copy of that on there somewhere, on the internet or anywhere else, bring it. There's also a letter that they found in Caesar's library about Pilate, speaking about his having dinner with Yahusha, before he was right before his execution. And according to Pilate, he had told Caesar that he had volunteered his son to take the place of Yahusha. And Yahusha told him, no, because nobody's making me do this. I'm doing this of my own accord. I'm doing this for humanity. Nobody's making me do this. I'm laying down my life, and it's my own choice to do so. And he said, matter of fact, I could right now, if I wanted to, I could send for a legion of messengers to come down and wipe everybody out, and I'd walk right out of here, But I'm not going to. I'm going through with this because this is what I want to do. All right. And so then, according to Pilate, Yahusha disappeared, and he left that evening, and they were having dinner together, and he left and went somewhere, and then was gone for quite a bit, for hours, and then he finally came back and talked to him some more. So that's all written in that letter from Pilate to Caesar. They have that letter too. You got to remember, the Romans kept strict letters, especially if it obtained to Caesar, man. If it was anything to do with writing something to Caesar, him writing to somebody else, even all his words were recorded. If he said it, it was written and recorded and kept in that library of Caesar. So it wasn't something they took lightly, man. It was strictly enforced. All right. So if anybody come up with anything, bring it. All right. So anything else up to this point? Let's continue on then. Oh, wait a minute. I wanted to bring this up. I forgot. So on 10, I came to be in the Ruach on the Yom of Yahuwah. And I heard behind me a loud voice as of a trumpet saying, I am the leaf and the tall, the first and the last. Okay. So what does that mean? I came to be in the Ruach on the day of Yahuwah. Somebody. Raul.
That he is one of the two witnesses? Because he is in the Ruach on the day of Yahuwah. That will judge.
I never thought of that. I got to give some thought to that one. Go ahead, Toria.
Tad had his hand up first.
Oh, go ahead, Ted.
Oh, I was just going to say, in the BYNV, Lou has put exactly what it means. It says he came to be in a special phase shift, ushering forward in time to the day of Yahuwah in order to witness events so that he could report to us what this whole book is about, the day of Yahuwah.
Now, is the second coming of Yahushua and the day of Yahuwah the same thing? Yes, it is.
I was going to say that he saw the vision.
Okay, so to say it's more, can somebody explain this what Tad just read in a more simplified way? Can you say it in a different way that it's more easy to understand for, say, the novice?
That he dreamed of what is to come.
You think it was a dream?
Or a vision? Or that he was translated?
Well, he said he came to be in the Ruach on the day of Yahuwah.
Just as Moshe was translated, just as Hanak was translated.
You said it. That's it. It's translated. So we can say he was translated from his present time into the future to a different time period. Yeah, very good. Anybody else? Okay. So Christianity says that this is talking about that he came out on the first day of the week, the sun's day of worship. Does anybody see a connection between this, what this is saying, somehow implying to the son's day of worship? I don't see where they're making that connection at all. I don't get it, man. Maybe if we read it out of the King Jimmy, we'll understand where they're coming from. So let's get a look at it, because this is something that they heavily promote in order to substantiate that the reason why they were allowed to change Yahuwah's Shabbat to the first day of the week, because of this verse right here. I don't understand how that relates. I really don't. Let's see what it says in King Jimmy. It says, if I can, some pages are sticking here. So here we go. That's in 10. So it says, I was in the spirit on the Lord's day and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet. I was in the spirit on the Lord's day. And then here it says, I came to be in the Ruach on the Yom of Yahuwah. So the Lord's day, according to Christianity, is what? What is that? Go ahead, Ted.
The day that they gather and worship the sun.
Right.
First day of the week.
Right. So by changing that to Lord's day, which would be the sun's day of worship, then you could see where there's somehow they're using this to justify changing Yahuwah's Shabbat to the first day of the week. You see that? So here then in BYNB, I came to be in the Ruach on the Yom of Yahuwah. That's a totally different thing. The Yom, everybody knows what the day of Yahuwah is, right? The second coming of Yahusha. It happens at the end of the 6,000 years. So he was translated from his present time when he was on the island Patmos to the end of the 6,000 year millennium at the second coming of Yahusha. Everybody saying that? And I heard behind me a loud voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am the leaf and the tall and the first and the last. Wow. So why he's allowing Yehukanan to take all this stuff in, what's happening on the day of Yahuwah. Now he's telling him, while you're watching all this, start writing. I'm going to tell you everything, all the events, everything that's going to lead up to this day that you're witnessing right now. Start writing. See that? Any questions? Okay, let's continue on then, Ted.
And I turned to see the voice.
Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. Hang on a minute. I forgot you read through this. Okay, so here then it says, and write in a book what you see. Okay, now what you see, and send it to the 7 assemblies of Asia. And he names them. Okay, so not all 14 assemblies or 20 assemblies, however you want to count them, but just to these 7 located within a 50-mile radius of them, each other. Okay, and so it's not all the assemblies. It's just this little group of assemblies in Asia Minor. He wants you to write all this down and send each one of them a copy of this entire revelation. Okay, see that? And so write in a book what you see. Now, see is a present tense. So he's talking about what you see. He's talking about what do you see? That's in the present. That's where we dwell, in the present. We can't look into the future. And we can only see the past as hindsight. That's the only reason we can see that, because we came through it. But this isn't the past or the future. He's saying what you see, which is present tense. Everybody seeing that? Okay, so way up here, back up in 2, he says, to all he saw. Past tense. Here, and sin and write in the book what you see is now present tense. Okay, so he's getting the command to write what he saw and what he sees, past and present so far, and send it to the 7 assemblies located in Asia Minor. Everybody on board? Go ahead, Chad.
What's Tad? But
Or Chad.
Chad, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say what I get out of it is this is basically a big cry to repentance on this day of Yahuwah, not the Lord, but it speaks of it. What I've got Isaiah 13:6, Ezekiel 13:5, Joel 1:15, Zephaniah 1:7, 1 Thessalonians 5:2. There's so many verses that are referring to the actual day of Yahuwah, that it's going to be darkness, and death, and suffering. And Yehochanan was in the Ruach that day and seeing that all this that was coming upon man and how terrible it's going to be. So these writings alone keep that fear of Yahuwah in us. As I don't know if that goes along with what she's talking about. That's how I see it. It's not the Sunday like the SUN day, like the LORD day that the Christians are talking about. But it's the actual day that he returns, and there's all that vengeance and wrath for that.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that is definitely in the future. Okay. When he says he's in the day of Yahuwah, that's in the future. What you're saying with all the lightnings, the thunders, and the earthquakes is in the future. And it does. When we hear about lightnings, thunders, and earthquakes, and hail, and this kind of stuff, that is always pointing at the day of Yahuwah. Okay. And we're going to see as we get into Revelations that we're going to get into the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls or vials. And we're going to see at the end of the conclusion of each one of these that we're going to see thunders, earthquakes, and hail and all this, lightnings after each one of these stories, which is the conclusion. They all conclude at the day of Yahuwah. And so it's going to provide us undeniable proof that the seals, the trumpets, and the vials are not in chronological order, and they do not telescope, which is a lot of Christian teachings as well. And so, yeah, what you're saying is true, and we're going to get into it, man. We got to be patient here. We're still remember the segments. I got to take you through these segments to remove the stumbling block. We got to get it, man. The prophetic prophecies do not start till the 4th chapter. Right now, we're in the past, talking about the past tense and the present tense, but he's only touching on them a little bit on the future here at the day of Yahuwah, but he's not concentrating on that. As we continue through this chapter, you're going to see what I'm talking about. We have to continue here. Get there. We'll get there by the end of the chapter. All right.
I love the Revelations, brother. Just saying.
I can see you're eager. Okay, let's. I just want you to see that. Write in a book what you see and give it to the 7 assemblies. So that means that these letters he's writing to the 7 assemblies is present tense. He's writing to them, and Yahuwah's revealing to them what they're doing in that era that John was on Patmos. You see that? So chapters 2 and 3 is going to be about the present. Write in the book what you see. Everybody clear on that? Or at least picking up what I'm laying down? Okay. It'll clear up by the time we get to the end of the chapter. You'll see it. All right. I just wanted to point that out. So far then, the past tense and the present tense and the future tense when he came into the spirit on the day of Yahuwah, is which always is refers to what Chad brought up: the lightnings, the thunders, the earthquakes, and the hail. Always points to the day of Yahuwah. When you read that anywhere in Scripture, it's alluding to the day of Yahuwah. Go ahead, Tad.
I can see where Christianity, with what they've been taught, because they think that he was in the spirit on a certain day, their Shabbat, seeing a vision. If that was the case, it would be in the past. But like you pointed out, it's not. It's present. So I can see where they would be confused by that aspect of it.
Chad, those verses that you spouted out there, those are reference to lightning, thunders, earthquakes, and hail. All the ones.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, the day of Yahuwah is just references to the actual day of Yahuwah and what was coming. And I think, like in Amos 15, I believe, where he talks about we're not to look forward to the day of Yahuwah because it is a day of suffering and death, and it's not good. It's no bueno. So yeah, just referencing to that.
Okay, I got you. All right, anybody else? Yeah, I'm not real sure how Christianity's getting that this is talking about the Lord day. I've heard them explain it, but I don't remember what they said. Go ahead, Chad.
It's Amos 5, not Amos 15. Sorry, I'm human like the rest of us. I make mistakes. But it's Amos 5, 16 through 20 is what I was referencing right then, about not to be looking forward to the day of all the suffering that's coming upon the earth to those who haven't repented and been washed in his blood. So just like our Christian brothers and everyone, we need to have a heart for them and the things that they're going to have to deal with for their suffering and pain brings about repentance and help. And we know our help comes from above. So it's just a day of a lot of suffering and pain and death for people that I don't know whether it's he hardened their hearts like Pharaoh, or they just choose that their sins are so great that maybe they don't think they can be forgiven. But I still think that's what tribulation is for, to bring about repentance to all of man. That's what I hope for. Now I hope the wind, y'all can hear me. I'm sorry about the wind. Can't do nothing about it.
And we can hear you, but the wind is a factor, but we can hear you. Let's continue on. Anybody anything else to say, or any comments or questions up to this point? Okay, let's go ahead and continue on.
And I turned to see the voice which spoke with me. And having turned, I saw 7 gold lampstands, or a menorah. And in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the son of Adam, dressed in a robe down to the feet and girded about the chest with a golden band.
Okay, hang on a minute. Okay, so we just determined here then that the Aleph and the Tau, the first and the last, is Yahuwah saying these things, right? The El Shaddai, Almighty, back up in 8. So down here in 11, he says, 10:11, I came to be in the Ruach of the Yam of Yahuwah, and I heard behind me a loud voice as a trumpet saying, I am the Aleph and the Tau, the first and the last. Okay, so up here now, he's saying that he turned to see who said that. Okay, and now all of a sudden, we know it was Yahuwah, but now all of a sudden up here, he's describing who was speaking to him in this description here. And having turned, I saw 7 gold lampstands, and which we all know is depictive of a menorah, depicts a menorah. And in the midst of those 7 lampstands, one, not 2, but 1, like the son of Adam, which we all know is Yahusha, dressed in a robe down his feet and girded about the chest with a golden band. Okay, so here now, don't forget what this is about. This is about revealing Mashiach, the revelation of Yahusha Mashiach. Okay, so here, after all this, knowing that Yahuwah said all this, and all of a sudden he sees the one talking and he says it's Yahusha. So he's seeing Yahusha in his body. He can lay some eyes on him now because he's in his body, right? If he wasn't in his body, he would be invisible. Go ahead, Chad.
Like y'all brought it up earlier about Zechariah 4, verse 2, didn't you? Because it's exactly what he's talking about there, seeing in the vision.
Go ahead and read it for us, Chad.
Okay. Zechariah 4:2. And he said to me, what do you see? So I said, I have looked and see a lampstand all of gold with a bowl on top of it, and on the stand 7 lamps with 7 spouts to the 7 lamps. And this continues on talking about the 2 witnesses. You want me to keep reading?
No, I understand what you're saying now. I got you.
Okay.
About the 2 witnesses. Okay, so yeah, very interesting here. That this is we know that this is describing or depicting Yahusha. We know that at this point. Everybody agreeing with that? He's seeing Yahusha, the body of Yahuwah. Okay, the Lamb of Yahuwah. All right. Okay, go ahead now, Tad. Go easy.
And his head and hair were white as wool, as snow, and his eyes as a flame of fire, and his feet like burnished brass, as if refined in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters.
Okay, stop. All right. So what's he doing here? He's describing who was talking to him. Is he not? Yeah, he is. And so now we know from the beginnings about the lampstands and the one like the son of Adam, that he has to be talking about Yahusha, the Lamb of Yahuwah. Okay. Now all of a sudden, it seems like as the description continues, the vision of who he's seeing changes, and he becomes extremely closely resembling Ancient of Days, which we know is Yahuwah. You see that? So let's look at that over in Daniel 7:9. Go to Daniel 7:9. We're going to spend a lot of time in Daniel as we read through Revelations. So Daniel 7:9 says, I was looking until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His robe was white as snow. So over here, what does it say? His head and his hair were white wool as snow. Okay, his robe was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like clean wool. Clean wool, which would be very white. Not speaking so much of the substance of his hair or but it's the color. Okay, so over here it says, and his head and hair were white as white wool as snow. So his head is white and his hair is white like snow. And so what does that mean? That means his face is illuminated. It has to be like a light, shining light, similar to probably the transfiguration on the Mount of Olives, right? Where his face was white, brighter than the sun, and his clothes were white as the light. Remember that? At the transfiguration, we were seeing the Ancient of Days, it sounds like. At the transfiguration. Now look closely. His robe was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like clean wool. His throne was flames of fire, its wheels burning fire. And it goes on and on and on, talking about the end of the Ancient of Days. So let's go back over here now to Revelations, and it sounds a whole lot like the same person. His hair was white as white wool, as snow, and his eyes as a flame of fire. So then that means he must have been lit up brighter than the sun. You know, the sun's burning fire, a ball of fire, right? And his feet like burnished brass. What's that mean? Go ahead, Toria.
Refined. He's been
Refined, burnished brass would be what? Like a real shiny yellow, gold color? Or would it be a brown color?
I would say refining would be like a polishing to where you could see yourself.
Oh.
Been worked
Yeah.
to perfection.
Oh. Go ahead, Steve.
That's what I was going to say was highly polished brass, and it takes on a gold color.
Mm-hmm. Be almost transparent too, isn't it? And his voice as sound of many waters. So it sounds like to me here that we're getting a description of Daniel's description of what the Ancient of Days looked like. It was very similar here. Okay, so what, according to this description, who would you say was the one that was the voice that was speaking to you? Who owned the voice that was speaking to you, Hukanan? Whose voice was it? Who do you think it was? Go ahead, Steve.
Yahuwah. Yeah, speaking to the one.
So Yahuwah in his lamb, in his body,
right,
the flesh,
yeah,
or his glorified body,
his glorified body.
So it begins to say, look like Yahusha, but then it rapidly turns into a vision of Yahuwah, doesn't it? Ancient of Days. Everybody agreeing to that? So the revealing of Yahusha here now, the revelation of Yahusha is beginning to look a whole lot like Yahuwah, like he's Yahuwah. Take off, peel back the layers of the onion, we're seeing Yahuwah here. See, everybody seeing that? So I would say the revelation of Yahushua Mashiach is that Yahuwah is Yahusha. Yahusha is Yahuwah. Incarnate, or in his glorified body, or his body of light, if you will, the firstborn of all creation. Go ahead, Tad.
I just wanted to point out that it basically has to be him in his body, because it says one like the son of Adam. I mean, that means like human features, a body.
Yep, exactly. So the image would be that of a man. The likeness of a man is what he saw.
Which we all know that he created us in his likeness.
And he came in our likeness. Go ahead, Toria.
I was going to say to that also, because we are supposed to walk like he walked. So the wool, because he was washed, refined, as we are to be. The burnished brass is also us being refined as he is refined. And the many waters, his voice as a sound of many waters. We are the many waters. He is the voice of us. Just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah, the many waters or the sea can be humanity, the nations. For sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's seeing the likeness of a man. Somebody standing there looks like a man, but definitely appears as the Ancient of Days in his body. So even his body of light, okay, must have been looked like a man. Must have been in human form. Must have. Does that mean he entirely occupied the body of light, and it was spread out so much that it was the perimeter of creation? Or does that just mean that he was in his body sitting on the throne and he was still everywhere else at once? Which one? Go, Toria.
I'm just going to go back to the garden because he was that light. They didn't need a sun and the moon yet. They were inside that garden. So Yahuwah was that light for all things. So he would be the light for all things for us that is to come.
What I'm asking is, when he was in that body of light, was it the perimeter of existence and he was inside of it? Or was he just occupying his body, sitting on the throne? He was still everywhere else at once, and his Ruach is the perimeter of existence. Is that the one? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be it. Okay, because nothing can exist outside of Yahuwah, not even his own body. It has to be within him, and him in it. See that? Yeah, very powerful stuff, isn't it? Get your mind going. Okay, any other questions on that? Let's go, Ted.
Picking back up at verse 16. And in his right hand he held 7 stars. And out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword. And his face was as the sun shining in its strength.
Okay, stop. So there it is then. So yeah, so since his head and his hair were white as wool, his eyes like flame of fire, this tells us right here now that his face was as the sun shining in his strength. So what does that remind you of? The transfiguration on the Mount of Olives. So when Peter and James and John were all up there with him, they saw the Ancient of Days. He showed them his natural appearance and his body of light, what they could see. They couldn't see him as Ruach, but in his body of light, he showed himself as the Ancient of Days. They saw the Ancient of Days. Same as Daniel saw, the same as Yehukanan saw here. Amazing, isn't it? So he in the Mount of Transfiguration, Yahusha revealed himself as Yahuwah in his body of light. Amazing. Go ahead, Ted.
Just a question. It's also the same body that Moshe saw, wasn't it? Except only his back? Or am I incorrect on that?
No, I'd say you're correct. That's why he
Okay.
couldn't see his face, because his face was brighter than the sun. I mean, can you imagine seeing a light brighter than the sun up close? It would blind you instantly for sure, and probably would kill you, because Yahuwah said, "No man can see my face and live." As the Ancient of Days. But in his fleshly body, as the Lamb of Yahuwah, you could see his face and live. Get it? And live. Not die, but live by seeing his face. Getting that connection. Okay. Wow, so powerful. Okay, so he held 7 stars in his right hand, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword. What does that mean? Does he have a 2-edged sword as a tongue? Is this an idiom? So what would it mean? Go ahead, Ted.
I believe it means it's the word, his word, the Ten Debarim.
Go ahead, Phyllis.
I was going to say the same thing, the Torah of Yahusha.
Okay. All right. So that sharp two-edged sword we know cuts both ways, right? So you're wielding that truth. It cuts both ways. We have to be careful. So sharp two-edged sword then would be truth coming out of his mouth, correct? And with that truth, people can live or die. All right? It can cause life or death. It's two-edged, life or death. Okay. So he doesn't have an actual sword for a tongue. And his face was as the sun shining in his strength. So no doubt here, this is depicting the Ancient of Days now, and looking one like the Son of Man with the 7 lampstands, depicting a menorah as Yahusha. So this is pretty good evidence now that Yahusha is Yahuwah. Everybody's agreeing with that? Okay, let's continue on then.
Can I ask a question real quick, Brother Mark?
Yep.
Just wondering what it meant. In his right hand, he held 7 stars.
Yeah, we're going to get into that here just in a moment.
Okay.
Okay, let's go.
And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. And he placed his right hand on me, saying, "Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last and the living one. And I became dead, and see, I am living forever and ever. Amen. And I possess the keys of the grave and of death."
Okay, hang on. Okay, so who is that subscribing? But, first Yehukanan fell at his feet as he was dead, so he must have passed out. So even in the Ruach on the day of Yahuwah, as he's seeing all this on the day of Yahuwah, and he's writing everything Yahuwah's telling him to write, he passes out as he was dead, and he just collapsed, okay, at his feet. So that does that mean that he had to physically be there on that day, physically be there in order to pass out as though he was dead? If he was just in his being, was there just as Ruach left his body and went and was translated, would his Ruach pass out? And could his Ruach live separate from his body? Was he there physically or not? Somebody. Go ahead, Ted.
I believe he's there physically. That's my opinion.
Anybody else? So I agree with you, Ted. I think he has to be there physically. His entire body and being has to be there. So he was definitely translated fully from his era to the tribulation years. Go ahead, Ted.
I just wanted to point out that if I was in Yehukanan's place in the presence of the Almighty, I probably would have done the same thing. I was so in awe. I'm sure I would have hit the floor.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm sure I probably would have hit the floor the second I got there. Anybody else? Okay, so this is important to understand that he's there on the day of Yahuwah, because later on when we hit chapter 4, he's not going to be in the day of Yahuwah anymore. So he at one point he leaves the day of Yahuwah. Okay, and I think it's after chapter 1. Okay, but we'll look into it to keep that in mind. Okay, he's there now for sure. All right. So what is, he placed his hand on me. Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. It's like the third time we've heard him say that he's the first and the last. And the living one. Ikah. One. See that? He's the living one. So we have no doubt in our minds going into this verse that Yehukanan just saw the Ancient of Days, which is Yahuwah, but now he's identifying that he's the living one. Okay, yeah, and I became dead, and see, I am living forever and ever. Amen. So now he's all of a sudden we're coming out of this huge vision of Ancient of Days, being Yahuwah, back down into the Mashiach again, where he has died, but now he's back alive forever and ever more. So this reaffirms that it's Yahusha. See that? So we went from Yahusha to the Ancient of Days, Yahuwah, now back in being Yahusha, showing us that all these activities, all these events belong to the same one being, Yahuwah. This should be leaving hardly any doubt in your mind at this point that Yahusha is Yahuwah. Now, it says here, and I became dead, and see, I am living forever and ever. Amen. And I possess the keys of the grave and of death. Okay, so did Yahuwah die? Since this is Yahuwah, it says I became dead. Did Yahuwah die? Yes or no? Go ahead, Toria.
He did not. The flesh did.
So just the vessel died. The lamb died. Right, his body. So what happened to Yahuwah? If just his body died, the fleshly body, what happened to Yahuwah? He didn't die. Where'd he go? Go ahead, Ted.
Absolutely nothing. He was still everywhere at all times, wherever he wanted to be.
Very good, man. That's what I was hoping somebody was going to say. Go ahead, Toria.
I like how it says, and I am living forever and ever, because of the fact that there is no second death for him. He is the beginning and the end.
Yeah, he never died.
You're right.
Okay, so what he's letting us know, though, is that he was in the incarnation. And so what happened? So the second the body died, the flesh died, then Yahuwah simply disrobed himself of the flesh. So he just come out of that fleshly body and left it hanging on the stake, much like a snake would leave its shedded skin hanging on a tree or something, right? And crawl away. So he just left the shell there, hanging on the tree. He left the shell there, and he just disrobed himself of it, but he was still there. He was still everywhere all at once. He just left that shell lifeless, hanging on that tree. Why? Why did he leave that body hanging on the tree and disrobed himself of it? Why? Go, Toria.
To be the example unto us, that we are to disrobe ourselves unto him.
In a way, it was a type of us shedding ourselves of these temporal bodies and putting on immortality, but that's not what I'm looking for. Go ahead, Steve.
To fulfill the prophecy.
To do what?
To fulfill the prophecies.
Prophecy for what?
His return.
No. Go, Raul.
To wash away our sins by his blood.
Yeah, because it contained the pure, perfect blood needed to wash away the sins of the world, to blot out the sins. That's why he left it hanging there so it could bleed on the altar. The earth was his altar, and the blood had to be sprinkled down onto the altar, wash away the sins of the world. That's why he left it there, so it could shed his blood, spill his blood on the altar. Go ahead, Toria.
Yes, because he was that sacrifice for the curse that was put upon us. So it had to be shed.
It's the only way he could shed his blood because he's Ruach. He had to have a fleshly body to shed his blood. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of the things that the Son did is he did in the sonship role. He had to do it in the flesh as a human, because only a human could qualify to meet the standards of his righteousness in order for it to take hold and mean something. It had to be done by a human, in other words. It had to be. So he had to come as a man. A spirit or any other being couldn't serve, complete the requirements for deliverance, forgiveness. It had to be a man's do it. And so no man was capable, and there was no human blood capable. So Yahuwah had to transform his spiritual body into flesh, and so that he could bleed his perfect blood, spill his perfect blood. That's why he left it hanging on that tree, so it could spill down onto the altar of the Eretz. Wash away the sins of the world. Okay. Anybody got any questions on that? Comments or anything? Okay, so Yahuwah did not die. Only his fleshly body died. He removed him, disrobed himself of it. And when he came out of that, what happened to the spirit that was in the man? Yahusha was perfectly human like us. He had a body and a ruach just like us. What happened to his ruach? In the fleshly nature, the human, where'd that go? Go, Ted.
It went back to the Father part who gave it.
Yeah. So when the Father left, the Ruach HaKodesh left the vessel, the shell there, the lamb. Second he left, he took the human Ruach with him because it was interwoven to him, was connected to him, so interwoven to him that it was him. And so wherever the Ruach went, the Ruach for Yahusha of the human part of Yahusha went with him. It's forever attached because it is Yahuwah. Something our minds can't hardly wrap our minds around that, but we can understand that a little bit. Okay. And so the only way I can explain it any further would be that Yahuwah allowed a part of his Ruach to be Yahusha's Ruach in that human body. And so he allowed him to have it to be his, Ruach, but he never separated himself from it. It's like us, we have the Ruach HaKodesh living in us, right? If the Ruach HaKodesh got mad at us because we went back into the world or something and he left us, we wouldn't die instantly because our Ruach would remain with us. The Ruach HaKodesh would just leave and leave our Ruach in our bodies. And we would continue to walk around and sin and carry on. But in Yahusha's case, when the Ruach pulled out, he took his Ruach with him and the lamb laid there slain. Go, Raul.
That's what should happen to us, right? When our Ruach, let's say we live to the day of atonement, to the last day of atonement, to when he either wakes up the ones that have died or us that will be alive, our Ruach will go with him.
He's going to raise the bodies, he's going to raise them up from the dead.
Right.
Okay. And then their Ruach, which is being sealed for the day of redemption by the Ruach HaKodesh, is with the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay. When the body's raised up, they get the Ruach back, but he's going to change their bodies instantaneously into immortality, to an immortal body. Your old body of flesh and bones will be translated or transformed into a spiritual type body or an immortal body. So you're not going to get a new body. Your old body is going to raise your bones back up and put flesh and everything back on them and then transform it into an immortal body. And it's all going to happen, I want to say instantaneously, but at least within the wink of an eyelid. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Why do you suppose Yahuwah needs to raise our old bodies that died, bones back up, and use our old bodies and change it into immortal body? Why doesn't he just give us an immortal body? Why's he got to use our old bones that was in the grave? Anybody got, or those that remain alive, change that body of flesh into an immortal body? Why's he got to do that? Can he just give us a new body? Leave the bones in the dirt, in the dust? Go, Tad.
Because flesh and blood cannot inherit the reign of the Shamayim.
Yeah, but why is he using our old flesh and blood bodies and transforming them immortality? Can he just give us a body of immortal body without raising the bones back up? Go ahead, Toria.
I'm thinking it's our DNA that's within our bones that make us each unique.
Yeah, that's correct. So in other words, I think, my opinion, this is just me now, because nobody really knows, but my guess is because we're all going to look like we do now. We're still going to be us. We're just going to have a different body. So he's bringing us up, the body's up because that's who we are. And then we're going to look like what we do now, but we're going to be immortal. That's my guess why he's going to use our old bodies. Otherwise, I mean, could everybody just look the same? No difference. Everybody look exactly the same? Yeah, but it doesn't appear that that's what he wants. Otherwise, why is all your ancestors' DNA being stored in your DNA strands? The history of your ancestors are all in your DNA. Everybody, he can raise everybody up just out of your DNA. No matter what happened to them, their DNA is stored in your DNA, which implies that there's going to be immortality. Why else would he be storing your ancestors' DNA up in every generation that precedes it? See what I'm saying? There's got to be a reason, and that reason is that's proof that there's going to be immortality because everybody's DNA is attached to your DNA and it's being stored. So no matter what happened to them, if they got blown to smithereens or got shot up in a rocket in the universe and got blown up to billions of little cells, they can't even be recovered. No matter what happened, they were totally incinerated. Their DNA is in your DNA and it can be recovered, and he can bring their DNA, their bones and flesh back and turn it into immortality. Put their ruach back in it. See that? Why? What's the reason? Because there's going to be an eternity being stored up for eternity. Go, Toria.
I just want to clarify for those that are listening or may not have the understanding that when we say that that we will be who we are right now, our appearance, it is not of the flesh. We won't have flesh upon our bodies, so we will not physically appear the same. I think we'll be as Adam and Kua before the flesh was put upon them. So I just wanted to clarify that we're not going to just appear and be in a fleshly body.
Right. We're not going to have a fleshly body. We're going to have an immortal body, probably similar to Yahusha's resurrected body. Okay. But what I'm saying is when you see that person, it's going to look like that person. So my immortal body is still going to look like me, but it's not going to be flesh and blood. It's just going to have my appearance. I think we're going to maintain our appearance. Why? Because our appearance is in our DNA. That's why you look the way you look, because it's written in the DNA for themselves to put themselves together and form themselves in order to look like you look right now. But it's just a guess. I can't say for sure. Go ahead, Steve.
I hope the DNA that shows up at that point was the DNA back when I was 25 instead of what I look like now.
I hear you, brother. Yeah, that's a good point, and I would think that it would be. You know what I'm saying? Because when we age, our looks change. You know,
Well,
I mean, I look in the mirror, I'd like who's that? You know what I mean?
I do believe we're supposed to have a perfect body at that point, and this ain't it.
Yeah, it won't be flesh and blood. But I'm just saying we're going to maintain the identity that we can identify each other by how we look. And so, in other words, in eternity, you're going to have no problem when you see me knowing, oh, there's Mark. So you're going to identify me. How Yahusha makes us look is his business. I have no idea if we're going to look like we did when we were 20 or 100. I don't know. Go ahead, Toria.
I was just going to say, I believe Mashiach was our example, Yahusha, when he returned to the Talmudim, and they didn't recognize him at first until he revealed himself. I believe that's how we will be. He's the same but different.
That could be. I don't know what the purpose of that would be, though, but it could be. Like I say, I can't say any of this for sure. You know, I'm just throwing my opinion.
Wouldn't you think it would be going back to what we were supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if we're going to use Yahusha as an example, that he died and was resurrected and got his after 3 days.
He was 33.
32, 33, whatever. He came up. When he was resurrected, he looked exactly like he did when he died. Okay. And so if that is anything to go by, or if that's a hint, then we're probably going to look like we did when we were around 32 years old. But that's just a wild guess, man. I can't substantiate that. But if we use Yahusha as a pattern, then we would have to come to that conclusion. Now, he could shapeshift, defy gravity, walk through walls, do whatever he wanted, okay, because he's Yahuwah. So he can make himself look like anything he wanted to whenever he wanted to. Ain't nothing we can do about that. Are we going to have that same ability? Who knows? I don't know what the purpose would be, but who knows? Go ahead, Raul.
I was going to say, if now we're going to need a lot of name tags.
All right. I think we're all going to have new names. I'm not sure, but I think so. Okay. We just lost Chad, I think. Anybody sees him come back on, let me know. Can you guys see down below? See everybody down below in the backstage? You can see them come in? How do you know when somebody's trying to come in? How y'all know? Go ahead, Ted.
I just raised my hand because I was going to read something here in 1 Corinthians.
Now I can see him.
But someone might say, how are the dead raised up, and with what body do they come? Senseless one, what you sow is not made alive unless it dies. And as to what you sow, you do not sow the body, which is to be, but a bare grain. It might be wheat or some other grain. But Elohim gives it a body as he wants, and to each seed a body of its own.
Yeah, so we're going to have bodies of our own. They're probably going to look like we do now, around in our 30s. That's just my wild guess, man. I don't know. What are y'all getting out of that you just read? So in other words, we're not gonna be something else. We're going to be who we are. We're going to be components, but making up the assembly of Yahuwah. He's going to indwell us all fully. Go, Ted.
What I got out of what I just read was that I don't think any of us know for sure what we're going to look like. It's up to Yahuwah. He's in control.
Yeah. So since Yahuwah is the only one that has everlasting life, does that mean Yahuwah has to fulfill us and for us to have immortality? He's the only one that has everlasting life. So apparently he's going to fill us, and that's what's going to give us immortality. Yahuwah cannot die. So if he fills us up, then we cannot die because he can't die. Right? Okay. Anybody else got anything else on this? Back to Revelations now. And I possess the keys of the grave and of death. What's that mean? I thought St. Peter had the keys to the gates of the graves. Yeah. You're telling me St. Peter don't?
St. Peter does not.
Oh, okay. Glad we clarified that.
That's funny, though.
What does that mean? I possess the keys of the grave and of death. Go ahead, Ted.
I believe it pertains to, I think it's in Matthew, boy, I don't remember which chapter, but where he says, do not be afraid of the one that can kill the body. Be afraid of the one that can kill the body and the Ruach. I think maybe that's what it's talking about. He's the only one that can actually, kill you in the lake of fire and kill you, the second death.
Right. So he's the only one that can resurrect you, and he's the only one that can send you into the second death. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so he has the key to open the grave and the key to bring the dead to life.
Which is resurrection, right?
Right, yeah.
Go, Toria.
I could say that we could use, instead of using the word key, we use recipe. He's the one that created all things, so he's got the recipe to all things. Like Hashatan didn't get the whole recipe. He only got a piece of it. That's why his bread fell.
Hashatan copied the recipe wrong.
Yeah, I think he stuck his finger in there and threw something else in there we weren't supposed to put in there. Go ahead, Ted.
I have my spoon here so that I can stir it up and come out like I want it.
All righty. Anybody else? Okay, so let's go real slow into the next one here, Tad. This is probably an extremely important verse coming up. Y'all listen up.
Write, therefore, what you have seen, both what is now and what shall take place after these.
Okay, stop. Okay, so this right here gives us our 3 segments. Okay, so now we can understand. He puts it all out there for everybody to see now. Well, we've already known this, but he's just laying it out there wide open now. So right there for what you have seen, which is what he saw. That's the present, the past tense. I mean, what you have seen is past tense. This would be what he's seen when he was before, when he was walking with Yahusha. Okay, like what he saw in John 1, 2, and 3 type thing. Okay, seeing that Yahusha is Yahuwah incarnate. This is what he has saw or he's seen. Okay, and he's written this in chapter 1. Okay, that's the first segment. He's revealed that the revelation of Yahusha what he has seen is that he is Yahuwah. Of all the miracles he did, all the signs, all the wonders, everything he said, what he has seen, he in this revelation of who Yahushua is now past. He's already seen that. He's already seen the day of Yahuwah as well. Okay, so he can write about that. Chapter 1 is the past, if you will, or what he has seen tense. Okay, both what is now. Okay, so what is now is present tense. So what is now is in his era, where he's on the island of Patmos during that time period, it would be now. Okay, and so he's going to write what is now in chapter 2 and 3. That's the second segment. So that tense will be revealed in chapters 2 and 3 as he writes to the assemblies, those 7 assemblies within that 50-mile radius in his time, in his day, during his time on Patmos, what was going on. Okay, so that's the present tense. And what shall take place after these? Okay, so this is obviously future tense in the future, and it will be revealed to him by none other than Yahuwah. And he will write down everything in the past, present, and future here that's pertaining to the second coming of Yahushua. Who he is, what he's doing, what he did, what's going to happen after his death, leading up to his second coming, all the events, the condition of the world, the mindset of the people, everything is going to be revealed that leads up to his second coming. So the first chapter, if you will, okay, the past tense is what? It's in reference of his first coming and who he was. Everything else is going to, from 4 on, is going to be about revealing his second coming. And we already know who he is because he already explained it to us in the first chapter. And he'll go on to continue to explain who he is throughout the entire revelation of Mashiach. Okay, so there it is, man. Very clear now. Right, therefore, what you have seen, he does so in chapter 1. Both what is now, he does so in chapter 2 and 3. And what shall take place after this, he does so starting with chapter 4 to the end. That's the 3 segments of Revelation. We got to get that, man. That's the big stumbling block. You have to realize these 3 segments and what they are and where they're at, where they begin and where they end. You have to get it. Okay, so if you understand that, we've removed a huge stumbling block in front of you today. You're well on your way to receiving the message of the revelation of who Yahushua HaMashiach is in his second coming, or the day of Yahuwah, if you will. Any questions on that? Vitally critical, important verse. Everybody picking up what I'm laying down here? Everybody understanding this and accepting this now? Okay, because it's very important to do so. All right, let's finish off now, Ted.
Okay, answering my question that was up in verse 16. The secret of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 gold lampstands. The 7 stars are Malachim, or messengers, of the 7 assemblies. And the 7 lampstands, which you saw, are 7 assemblies.
Okay. So what is an assembly?
Gathering, no.
What is it? What is an assembly? Go, Raul.
A gathering of believers.
Yeah. What is it? Go, Ted.
I'm trying to think how to explain it. It's like a group of not serene, probably.
Yeah,
They're all
we are an assembly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, but what is the assembly of Yahuwah?
His body.
His body. An assembly is his body. So it doesn't matter how many components are making up the body. There's only one body. So these are not divisions, denominations, or separate deities at all. It's one body. Okay. These 7 assemblies here, 7 lampstands, which you saw are 7 assemblies, means of the body of Yahusha. Okay. So what is that telling us? Well, it's saying that he's addressing these 7 assemblies, his body in Asia Minor. They're not the only 7. Remember, there's at least 14. No matter how you count them, there's 20 if you count them slightly differently. Okay, or more. It could even be more. All right, so he's addressing these 7 body members, these assemblies. The 7 stars are Malachim of the 7 assemblies. So what does that mean? Is there a Malachim assigned to each assembly to watch over it? Or is this meaning that it's some type of influential spirit? Oh boy, I got so many books piled up here. It ain't funny. Go to, I'm going to jump ahead. Go ahead, Ted. Maybe I don't have to.
Well, just from what you asked, I would have to say it's one that is like assigned to each of the 7, even though it's one body, each of the 7 assemblies. Because when you say spirit, it just makes me think of like ghost, which is demons, you know. But I might be barking up the wrong tree here.
Okay, so is there's a spirit of delusion and there's a spirit of truth. Okay, and there's also other spirits, like the spirit of capitalism, the spirit of control, domination, if you will. Is capitalism, communism, Catholicism, Islam? These are spirits of control. There's some kind of a influence, a cloud of influence covering these people, which is a spirit. There's spirits that are frogs. There are spirits. These are unclean spirits that are out to influence people to follow after the darkness, type things like that. If we look over into, say, Zechariah, for instance, if we look at Zechariah, everybody go ahead and go to Zechariah if you want. It's I'm jumping ahead just a little bit here, but I want you to see here what my point being is. So if we go to Zechariah, 6, Zechariah 6. And we look at 1 through 7 here. Really, we only need to go to 5. But let's look at least 1 through 5. And I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and I saw 4 chariots coming from between 2 mountains. And the mountains were mountains of bronze. With the first chariot were red horses, and the second chariot black horses, the third chariot white horses, and with the fourth chariot strong speckled horses. So we can see this relationship with Revelation 6:1-8 when it talks about the 4 horses of the apocalypse. All right. The white horse, black horse, the red horse, and the green horse. Okay. So I responded and said to the messenger who was speaking to me, "What are these, my master?" And the messenger answered and said to me, if he's calling him masters, he's talking to the messenger of Yahuwah. Yes, which would be Yahusha. It's not an angel. Okay. And the messenger answered and said to me, these are 4 spirits of the Shemayim coming forth from presenting themselves before the master of all the Arets. You see that now? So they're not a physical thing. They're a spiritual thing that has heavy influence over all those who they touch or cover. Are you seeing that now? Okay, so this, back to Revelations then, the secret of the 7 stars which you saw in your right hand and the 7 gold lampstands. The 7 stars are Malachim of the 7 assemblies. So what's that mean? Is it 7? Is it an individual, Malachim, a messenger, an angel, a watcher, assigned to each assembly to watch over it, keep demons out? It can't be. And we're going to find out next week, because these assemblies were the assemblies of Hashatan. They weren't the assemblies of Ruach. They were the assemblies of Hashatan, these 7 assemblies, which Yahusha is going to address himself. He kept Paul out of there. The emissaries that did happen to go there were killed. And he kept a lot of them out of there because he wanted to deal with these 7 assemblies in Asia Minor personally. And he does in chapters 2 and 3. And we're going to get into it deeply next week. Don't mess next week. It's going to be a mind-boggling experience. I promise you that. Okay, so my guess here is this is 7 spirits, okay, that are up there in that vicinity of these 7 assemblies, which I said is a 50-mile radius, very close. Okay, and we're going to talk about them next week, big time. Okay, and so of the 7 assemblies, and the 7 lampstands which you saw are the 7 assemblies, which would be should have a menorah in them. They should be representing the body of Yahusha. And they should have a lampstand. And we'll find out next week that Yahusha tells them, if you don't knock it off, I'm going to remove my lampstand from your assembly, buddy. You're going to be on your own. You'll be under full control of the devil. All right? So he's going to remove his protection from the assemblies. Yahuwah himself is the one over the assemblies, over the body. All right, so the head of the body, of course, is Yahusha. The assembly is the body of the Yahusha, which is the bride. And that chapter right there concludes and ends everything that he has seen. So the past tense is started in chapter 1:1, and it ends chapter 1:20. Ends the past segment. So next week we begin the present segment, chapters 2 and 3. And they'll end at the end of 3. Okay? Any questions? Comments, questions, concerns, anything at all about what we just studied? If not, okay, I'm gonna stop right there. Next week we'll start into chapter 2. Hopefully we'll be able to do 2 and 3 next week. I'd like to complete that second segment before we go into the so that we can go into the third segment cleanly, starting in chapter 4. Go ahead, Ted.
I just know that you said, Brother Mark, you didn't want to stay on here very long, so because you had things to do. But before we go, I'd just like to offer a suggestion that we just give prayer to Brother Danny for his healing. Just kind of remember him, because we all love you, brother.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, on that note, we all should pray for each other. We should always pray for each other, keep each other in mind daily, and pray continually for the body. We need prayer, man. I'm telling you, there's a ripple or wave, if you will, in the body right now, and I'm fully aware of it, and I can sense it, and I can feel it through the Ruach. And there's some stuff going on that shouldn't be going on, but it is. And so we all need prayer. The body needs prayer. And Yahusha deserves a lot of praise and worship. And we should not forget about him as well. We should start our prayers off by praising and worshiping Yahuwah, and we should end our prayers with praising and worshiping Yahuwah. All right? And we should do this continuously. The continual burnt offering, right? The continual offering that we spoke about last night. All right, so I have like 45 minutes or so where I got to get off of here, but I was shooting for about 4 o'clock to get off. If anybody got anything they want to talk about, or any questions about today's study, anything at all? Toria.
Of course, I had to be that ripple. I was just reading one of the comments from Alan Tobolinski. When Yahusha rose, the people recognized him because of his body. People that did not need glasses. I'm a little confused by that because, the women that went looking for him, or, he stood before them and they didn't know who he was. Am I right? He didn't.
No, they knew who he was. They ran back and told Peter and John and James that they had saw the master.
Yeah,
and then they went running down to the tomb to look for themselves. They didn't believe the women.
Right. I know that, but I thought before that they had not recognized him.
No.
And they needed to, even when he did go back, they needed to see the doubting, what's his face, Thomas too.
Well, he didn't believe he was resurrected. It wasn't that he didn't recognize him. The ones that didn't recognize him was his aunt and uncle, and they were going back home. They were going back home after the festival.
Right.
And on the road back to their house, he appeared to them. He walked with them, and they didn't recognize him. And then they even invited him in to eat, and he was sitting there eating with them, and they still didn't recognize him until he revealed himself to them. So all that tells me is he can shapeshift. He can be whatever he wants to be. He can be a little girl. He can be a boy. He can be a man. He can be an old man, young man. He can be a woman. He can be a dog. He can be a donkey. He can be whatever he wants to be. He's Yahuwah.
Right. I'm just trying to find what he's trying to say there.
Not a whole lot. I mean, this is, Alan, he came on with us the other time. Remember he owns Texas. He has a big lawsuit.
That one.
Just saying that when Yahusha rose, the people recognized him because he rose his same body up. He didn't change bodies, and so they recognized him. I mean, it was only 3 days, 3 nights later. So his body wouldn't have changed. It didn't even corrupt. It didn't decay. It was only 3 days. It has to be in there for 4. So they recognized him because he rose up to his body, his same body that had been hanging on the.
I wasn't sure if that was like a spiritual thing he was saying, like they didn't recognize him because they weren't believing.
No, I don't think so. I think he's just reference to when we were talking about we see if our immortal bodies we're going to be able to identify each other because they're going to look like us. I think that's where he came in with that. Phyllis, you have your hand up?
I was just going to agree with Toria. The aunt and uncle didn't recognize him, but that was because he chose not to let them recognize him.
Yeah, I mean, remember, even when people were going to kill him, and they had him surrounded, he walked out from among them, so he either, it vanished, became invisible, translated, he did something, shape-shifted, something. Well, they didn't recognize him and they didn't kill him. He just walked out from among them. So even then they didn't recognize him for whatever reason. But that was after his resurrection. Yeah, he appeared as aunt and uncle, which should have knew him, but didn't. And so that tells you that he looked differently. He had to look like somebody else. Clearly his aunt and uncle would have recognized him. They knew him as a baby. Go ahead, Tori.
It's just making me think of today in the circus. We recognize him as I don't believe they recognize who he truly is today.
Say that again.
I said I see it like as in today, how the circus recognize him as somebody different than what we recognize Yahuwah as he is Yahuwah. The church recognizes him differently. I don't think they're seeing the Father and the Messiah, if that makes any sense. I think it's kind of like the same thing. They're not recognizing who he truly is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously because their portraits of him are incorrect. His portraits are of an Anglo-Saxon appearance.
Right.
Look like citizens.
They're seeing a Trinity.
That too. So yeah, they're obviously not recognizing him as looking like Yahuwah described him as being the Ancient of Days. The other description we get of him is in Isaiah. Go ahead, Mom, Marianne.
I just wanted to thank Tori and Chad for recognizing that I was trying to just get them to turn off their sound because of the wind, because it was really coming through pretty good. Thank you very much. And I'm going to head out. So goodbye to everybody. I love seeing you here. Y'all. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay, so Tad's not sweating anymore. Mom gone with the spoon. He's good to go. There you go. I'd be hiding that thing under the couch cushion or somewhere. All right, man. Anybody else? Go ahead, Phyllis.
Toria, your hair is beautiful, blowing in the wind. I've been loving watching your hair blow in the wind.
All that old gray hairs are amazing.
Okie dokie, man. Anybody else? Any questions? Any concerns? Any comments? Anything at all coming to mind? Anything jump out at you didn't get a chance to ask, or you're a little bit not sure of?
It just really makes me meditate on this whole teaching today. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we just got started. We're talking life-changing revelations coming up, folks. Don't miss this segment coming up. And even into the third segment, it's going to be the same thing. We did Revelations a couple times before, but we never went from the beginning to the end on it. And I purposely avoided the first 3 chapters and a few others because it's at the time I just felt it was too much. But we did get some good studying in. But this time here, we're gonna stay on it. I think everybody's able to accept these things now. At least our regular people that assemble are. Go ahead, Ted.
I was thinking back to our last study on third Yehukanan, and when we read down at the bottom here in verse 20 of Revelation, when you were talking about the 7 stars, the 7 basically unclean spirits that are, it kind of reminded me of, like I said, third Yehukanan, when he was writing to the assembly about that guy Diotrephes, who loves to be foremost among them and does not receive them, the one that he was warning them, stay away from there. Like you said, I believe, would that guy probably be one of those assemblies, is what I'm guessing?
I think that guy was in Corinth. Corinthians. The reason I'm saying that's where Paul, he was a friend of Paul's, right? And that's where, when we read about him and Paul hanging out together, they're in Corinth. That's in Corinthians. The mention of him is in Corinthians and Acts, but even in Acts, they're in Corinthians, I think. They could be in Greece, in Acts. I didn't read that enough in text to really tell, but when he's hanging out with him, saying that he, never immersed anybody but him, and a couple other people in their family, they're in Corinth. So I don't think he's up there in those 7 assemblies. Now, there are some of the assemblies that Paul did visit were there. I think at least one, but he didn't go back. Yeah. So that I think what it's going to, what the outline of it is they formed those 7 assemblies up there, and then they quickly became corrupt, and they fell away quickly, became assemblies of Hashatan, and that's why the Ruach wouldn't let them go up in there, and forbid them to go up into that area. And like I said, the ones that did go were killed, and so he didn't allow Paul or some other people to go up there at that point, because they had become a cesspool, of paganism. They started out there, but they went back into it, fell away, went back into the paganism, and then even worse, turned into assemblies of saints. So I think what we see there is the beginning of denominations or divisions in the body. It started there, and it's still going on even today. The divisions in the body, the denominations continue. In a lot more divisions now, right? Other than just 7. Now we have 300, at least 300 denominations, or 3,000. I think 30,000 within the world. A lot. And they continue to pop up.
Yeah, I definitely don't have enough fingers.
Yeah. So that's what I think we're going to get into next week. So it'll be a lot of fun. Go ahead, Raul.
Remember this:
Yeah. Do. We'll get into that. That's going to come into play around the 13th chapter.
What was that?
It was a study that he did.
He was showing.
I took pictures so I wouldn't forget.
He was showing you this. The beast. This is the beast.
The 4 horses.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit when we hit the fourth chapter, and then we'll get into it a lot more when we hit the Revelations 13 chapter.
Is this the same thing, Raul?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean the 6th chapter. We'll get into that chart he just showed you in the 6th chapter. And the 13th. So he just showed you was the beast. Yeah, those in chapter 6, that's the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? And most people don't realize that those are the first 4 seals. So we'll get into that. The first 4 seals are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. We'll get into that in chapter 6. Well,
I hear a lot of silence, or I don't hear a lot of silence.
yeah, somebody's humming. I don't know who that is. It was Raul.
My mic's off.
Okie dokie. Yeah, well, it was a fun study, and I know y'all are thirsting, and hungry for more, but we got to take these segments seriously, step by step, so that we understand them. But once we hit chapter 4, we begin that 3rd segment. Yeah, wow, it's just going to come fast and furious. Everybody will get fed quite a bit. Then you'll be full every time we're done, till we're done. I don't know how long it's going to take to go through that. I was estimating it. It's somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks. It's not going to be a quick study. The way today went, I can almost see it going 12 weeks. But we'll see.
If William is here, it might take longer.
Yeah, once William shows up and goes on all them tangents he likes to go on, it might take us 6 months.
What happened to Frank and his tangents?
I don't know. The parable of the tangents guy up there.
Sorry, I'm still plagued with a little bit of vertigo. I'm just barely here.
Oh, vertigo?
Yep.
You tried crystal ginger?
No, I haven't. I just taking cayenne pepper when I can and garlic, but I don't know what else to do. A little bit of coffee, but
yeah. Go to the
sinus rinses.
Go to the grocery store in the spice aisle.
Okay.
A big grocery store, and grab you a bottle of crystallized ginger.
I will get it tomorrow. Crystallized.
So you get that, and this is what you do. You take a handful of it, you throw it in your mouth, chew it up slightly, and stick it under your tongue, and let it sit there as long as you can stand it. When you're tired of doing that, just go ahead and finish chewing it up and swallowing it. and do it as much as you need to for 2 or 3 days. It should be gone.
All right.
And then you can like stare at a little spot on your wall where you got that ginger in your mouth. Pick up a little spot on the wall and sit there straight ahead, as straight as possible, and focus on that spot for as long as possible. Okay, it should be gone within a day or two. Should relieve you.
I'm willing to try anything at this point. I am so tired
I've
of
seen it work for at least 3 people, including myself.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Got an aunt that's on Valium. We got her drugged up on Valium for vertigo, man, and all it does is make her go to sleep. Doesn't take it away.
It's the calcifying of your pineal gland. You need iodine.
Yeah, you could do iodine too.
You don't even have to ingest it. You could actually rub it, take iodine and rub it on your arm, and the medical kind. So what happens is when you rub it on your skin, if it disappears within the day, then you need more. If it's that orange color stays there, that means your body is taking what it's needed. I probably do it at least once a week.
Yeah, keep that crystal ginger around, man, because the second you feel like you're getting dizzy, the second you feel like that's happening, grab that and throw it on, chew it and throw it on your tongue. It'll go away within an hour. It'll be gone.
That, and it'll keep your stomach from being queasy through it.
Brother Frank, I was going to recommend some magnesium and zinc supplements, and maybe some potassium, and you can get them with vegan capsules and everything. So with you working at Brown and everything, you're out in the heat, do a lot of sweating and put out a lot of energy, and you sweat out a lot of that magnesium and zinc. So it's good to have something to replace it. That might help, brother.
I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. I love you all.
Yeah, I'm going to sign off also. I'm going to take doggies for a walk.
I am too. So maybe we should go ahead and do the
Yeah, and give Mark a break.
priestly. Yeah, and let him do what he needs to do today. Do the priestly.
We
blessing.
love you all. We love you all. Have a good 7 days of Sukkot.
Shalom, my brother.
Shalom.
Shalom, everybody.
Priestly blessing, someone? Chad?
Okay.
Is Tad going? I thought Danny was going to do it. Okay.
Did you want to do that, Brother Danny?
I could if you want.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Yahuwah bless you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show you favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Yisrael, and I myself shall bless them.
Hallelujah. Love you all.
Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah.
Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah. Thank
See
you.
y'all next
Lord.
week.
Bye, everybody.
Love you all. Oh, go ahead and blow it, Danny. Let's hear
Oh,
it.
you don't want to hear me blow. I'm terrible.
Do it. Do it.
I'll try it.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I can't.
That's
do
a
it.
beautiful shofar.
It is a nice one. My wife got it for me before I started telling her that we need to be off on the 7th day.
Oh,
She thought it was great because I always followed the messianic stuff and such. But she got it for me. Now she'd probably be like, "No, I don't want you to have that." No, she's actually being pretty good. So Anyway,
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Little small baby steps. We'll take it.
there you go. I'm just gonna
Absolutely.
blow my horn as we leave. So,
Our best to the world.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. Shabbat shalom.